to get everything done. I play by all the rules, but I very rarely won. I've smiled, I've charmed, I would have laughed the last to no avail. I'd run round like a moron to unequivocally fail. I've no more fucks to give, my fuck fuse has just blown. I've been hunting for my fucks all day, but they've upped and fucked off home. I've no more fucks to give, my fuck rations are depleted. I've rallied my fuck army, but it's been fucking defeated. The effort has just not been worth the time or the expense. I've exhausted all my energy for minimal recompense. The complete thankful acknowledgement has now begun to go, and I've come to realize that I don't give a fuck. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks are blown away. My fucks are now so fucked up they refuse to fucking stay. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks have gone insane. They come back round and pass me while they're fucking off again. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks have all dissolved. I've planned many projects but my fucks won't be involved. I've no more fucks to give, my fucks have all been spent. They fucked off from the building, I don't know where they went. I've no more fucks to give, I've no more fucks to give. I've no more fucks, I've no more fucks, I've no more fucks to give. Thank you very much.
Respect my privacy has become the scream of every right, God-fearing royal. Respect my privacy has become the scream of every... Respect my privacy has become the scream of every right, God-fearing royal. And I thought we'd enjoy some of it because South Park did a damn good job recently. Just to mention first that the premium staff on lotuses.com is worth checking out. The Debate Might As Well Be Dead podcast thing I'm featuring right now. Because, well, there's a lot of phonies, isn't there? And in this debate, there's a lot of phonies on the left there who are like, don't you know that the British Empire killed a billion gazillion people? And you just kind of look at them and like, are you high?
British Empire wasn't even really playing that piano. He's a big phony.
British Empire didn't believe in privacy. And we'll go to the South Park stuff, because South Park has been hitting back up Twitter. I saw a lot of people reposting South Park stuff recently. This happens to coincide with the Respect My Privacy, which we'll get into. This clip, we're just going to enjoy, because it's from 2005, and Seth Dillon points out, oh god, it's a different world.
I remember watching this episode back in the day, and I can't help but feel it did inform my current beliefs.
Well, 18 years, and suddenly the truth is, I don't know, on the edge. Let's play it and enjoy that.
You here for an abortion too? Yeah, I discovered a few days ago I wasn't bleeding out my coos, so I guess I'm knocked up. Is this doctor any good?
Mrs. Garrison?
Oh, that's me. Hello, doctor. Looks like I need an abortion.
An abortion?
Yeah, I've got one growing inside me. Now, you're gonna scramble its brains or just vacuum it out? If you want, you can just scramble it and I'll queef it out myself.
Mr. Garrison.
Mrs. Garrison.
Mrs. Garrison, you can't have an abortion.
Don't you tell me what I can and can't do with my body. A woman has a right to choose.
No, I mean you're physically unable to have an abortion because you can't get pregnant.
But I missed my period.
You can't have periods either. You had a sex change, Mr. Garrison, but you don't have ovaries or a womb. You don't produce eggs.
You mean I'll never know what it feels like to have a baby growing inside me and then scramble its brains and vacuum it out?
That's right.
But I paid $5,000 to be a woman. This would mean I'm not really a woman. I'm just a guy with a mutilated penis.
Basically, yes.
Oh boy, do I feel like a jackass.
18 years ago, folks.
Oh, that led to the glorious Ika Penis episode.
Yeah.
As well. Do you remember the end of that? If you can't have a baby, you're not a woman. But my wife had ovarian cancer and can't have a baby. Well, I'm sorry, you're married to a man.
But the conversation here is obviously the, oh my god, how things have changed, and Seth is absolutely right, how things have changed, which is that, well, things that are demonstrable are no longer allowed to be said. If that doesn't make it on YouTube, hello YouTube, sorry, go and check out the website podcast if you haven't seen it. I think it's cut. But we'll move forward, because I saw Ian Miles Chung posting this, that they nailed transgender bathroom issue. This is actually quite an old episode as well. But it's obviously Cartman just saying, oh, I'm a woman now, I'm going to go have a S in the women's toilets. And a lot of retards didn't get the point, because if you go to the next one here, and then a lot of the pronoun people turned up, and were like, you do understand that Eric Cartman is the explicitly evil character, and the whole point of the show is pretending to be trans is wrong? No. No, the point of the show is that people can take advantage of a new rule set that you make up, because you haven't thought this through in the slightest. You didn't get that, because you don't get anything.
Could the answer be that evil characters might take advantage of this loophole?
It's just completely brain-dead individuals, but I had to mention that because I can't get over how stupid. There was like a huge response to Ian posting that as well, and people being like, ha ha ha, what a retard, doesn't he know that this is about the fact that those obsessed with trans bathrooms are wrong? No, it's that you can take advantage of whatever. You get the point. We'll move forward, because now we get to the privacy, and the privacy we won't be able to play because I think I'll get instantly taken by YouTube because of things, so we'll instead just go through some of that. So if you can go forward on this. There should have been one before. I put the wrong link, damn it. There was a different link that I messed up, in which Harry and Meghan start off the newest episode of South Park, where they go on a Canadian TV show and talk about how their privacy has been stolen from them, which is why they went on TV to talk about it. And then they
had a Spotify podcast, and a Netflix documentary.
And the host pulls out his book and goes, well, you've written about it all in your new book? Where? Great joke.
I like that Harry is portrayed as Canadian.
Yeah, well,
because not English.
Always been Canadian in South Park.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
It's not just because of Harry. But the host then mentions that, well, maybe this is all because your bitch of a wife is not insufferable. And Harry goes, look, my bitch wife is not insufferable. And then they decide to leave because they're so offended by their privacy and go on the worldwide privacy tour, in which they go around the world protesting for their privacy in Paris, in India, and then eventually in South Park, which is the last place they ever go. And then decide that, well, actually, South Park's pretty nice. Maybe we should settle down in South Park and show people we're serious about our privacy.
Oh no, this isn't the same as the Chef's Chocolate Salty Balls episode, is it? Where they ruin South Park.
Oh, they try. You can see here they decide to host a Respect Our Privacy party. So everyone knows they're super serious about all this. Carl tells them to shut up, which they take as an attack on their privacy. Rightfully. And then they decide, if you go to the next one, plaster his house with cover of Vanity Fair and Vogue, of Megan over here, so that he knows to respect our privacy. Kyle refuses to react to any of that, so Harry does the honourable thing of rubbing his penis on his window to ensure that Kyle will respect his privacy in future.
I've not watched the whole episode. I had no idea it gets so deep.
There's a really funny reference, well, not a reference, but Base Tape did call it, which is that Harry and Meghan are arguing about how Carl doesn't respect their privacy, and Meghan goes, it's because I'm an ethnic woman. And Harry goes, yeah, because you're an ethnic woman. Wait, you're an ethnic woman?
Just like all those casting directors.
Yeah, and then they go to this brand manager over here, who decides to help them obtain their privacy. And he does this by looking through the brand website. He finds out that Meghan already had an actress account, where she's a sorority girl, actress, influencer, victim. And then they add Harry, who is put down as royal prince, millionaire, world traveller, victim. Because, of course, Carl then turns up and tells them that maybe being a brand is not an authentic way to live your life, and you end up spouting falsehoods, because, well, of course you do. And Harry realizes that, yes, being a brand is cancer, stop it, be yourself instead.
And he tries to get a response from Meghan.
Meghan doesn't respond at all, because she's just a brand. So she is.
She's literally empty.
The completely blank individual. Actually having privacy is just part of the brand. That's it. And if you go to the next one here, it turns out apparently Meghan and Harry were looking at suing for a while, South Park, for this. They released a statement eventually saying, we haven't seen it, but we're very upset. How are you if you haven't.
We just know to be upset. South Park made an episode. If South Park made an episode making fun of me, I'd be thrilled, personally.
Also, South Park just succeeded, you absolute brainlets. You people are stupid and will keep doing public statements to protect your privacy. Well, we're issuing a public statement about why our privacy is...
It does remind me of how in the Harry and Meghan documentary, Harry's like, I can't believe being in the public eye the whole time. It ruined my childhood. I could never do that. Anyway, let me just put all my kids in front of the camera for everybody to see.
Also, South Park succeeds yet again. In the polling as well, South Park continues to succeed. Meghan continues to be the, well, least favourite loyal royal except from the paedophile. So, she's got that. Not as bad as the nuts. Put that on a gravestone. That's net popularity of -20. Also in the United States, apparently, very recently, she took a massive nosedive in the polls because, of course, been hated in Britain for ages and America for some reason. I don't know who. I've never met a Yankee who likes her, but...
Los Angeles.
Maybe. Apparently even they are sick of it now, especially after the book release, because they can't be bothered. But the thing is, there's another person who's gone through exactly the same circumstance that South Park has been through, in the sense of, once upon a time, in the olden days, Don Lemon used to say things which were true and would get him in trouble if he ever dared do it now.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I'm interested in this.
The phonies. This is the second part. See what I did with the episode title? Whatever.
Uncle Dom?
Yeah, well, Don Lemon has did a segment back in 2013, which he titled it 5 Things the Black Community Must Fix, which was before woke era politics, so he never mentions racism. Instead, let's listen to his spiel.
Because black people, if you really want to fix the problem, here's just 5 things that you should think about doing. Here's number 5. And if this doesn't apply to you, if you're not doing this, then it doesn't apply to you. I'm not talking about you. Here's number 5. Pull up your pants. Walking around with your ass and your underwear showing is not okay. In fact, it comes from prison when they take away belts from the prisoner so that they can't make a weapon. And then it evolved into which role a prisoner would have during male-on-male prison sex. The one with the really low pants is a submissive one. You get my point? Number 4 now is the N-word.
Well, he is.
By promoting the use of that word when it's not germane to the conversation, have you ever considered that you may just be perpetuating the stereotype the master intended, acting like a nigger? Now number 3, respect where you live. Start small by not dropping trash, littering in your own communities. I've lived in several predominantly white neighborhoods in my life. I rarely, if ever, witness people littering. I live in Harlem now. It's an historically black neighborhood. Every single day I see adults and children dropping their trash on the ground when a garbage can is just feet away. Just being honest here. Number 2, finish school. You want to break the cycle of poverty? Stop telling kids are acting white because they go to school or they speak proper English. A high school dropout makes on average $19,000 a year. A high school graduate makes $28,000 a year. A college graduate makes $51,000 a year. Over the course of a career, a college grad will make nearly $1 million more than a high school graduate. That's a lot of money. And number 1, and probably the most important, just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should, especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock. That means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train right to prison. And the cycle continues.
It's been 10 short years.
Sounding awfully white.
Don Lemon over there, back
Uncle Dom.
3 years before the Trump era, when CNN actually attempted to help people.
Apparently, Don Lemon had been reading Thomas Sowell around this period of his life. Those are actual Thomas Sowell talking.
We had to censor him saying the N-word there, in case you're wondering, because of YouTube and the modern era in which we live. But back then, Don Lemon was just on CNN being like, stop saying, and said it.
He was just throwing the N-word left, right, and center.
And the point being, clean your room. Don Lemon, clean your room, 2013.
Don Lemon laying out the Chris Rock blacks versus dichotomy.
Yeah, and, well, are any of those bad advice? Don't show your ass in public, or you look like...
You look like you're literally asking for it, according to prison logic.
Prison rules. Don't have a kid outside wedlock, you loser. There's the next one, which is the Maybe you should graduate. Also, don't throw trash on the ground if you can help it.
I've lived among the whites. I know their ways.
It's a real different world in every aspect. And obviously, in the modern age, if Don Lemon was to come out and give that exact speech on the same network 10 years later, correctly, this person notes he would be called a white supremacist by himself. Because how dare you? How dare you say that an individual might be responsible for their individual actions? Shocking, shocking ideas. And, well, Don Lemon, it used to be very, very interesting. And it's very recent that he became what he is. And the N-word stuff is probably the most interesting.
It's Trump, isn't it? It's just ever since around 2015, 2016, all of these people who used to apparently be relatively sensible. I've no doubt that at the time he would still be a bit of a leftist maniac. But he wasn't as much as he was.
Don Lemon would have sat and watched that South Park segment about Mrs. Garrison over there and been like, well, obviously.
Well, this is just what we knew back then.
Yeah, Don, you changed. Everyone else in your sphere has changed. But the rest of the country, those people who have gone to the right, haven't changed. In fact, most of them have gone slightly to the left of the old culture. And you're still sitting
remember
there.
2008 Barack Obama campaign saying, I'm not doing gay marriage.
It's not for him. But we'll get to the N-word stuff, because Don Lemon was very passionate about the N-word. I think he's got an interesting argument. So this is an interview in which they're talking about...
When's this one
some
from?
case. I can't remember the year on this, but Obama used the N-word in a speech
7 years ago.
2015. And he didn't bleep it, of course, he didn't say N-word. He said the word. And Don Lemon is like, why are we censoring the word? Like, if we want to actually understand the text, you need to use the word itself, otherwise you're censoring reality and not being able to feel the full force of the speech. It's a very interesting conversation. Obviously, it's kind of pointless, because you're on cable TV, which is regulated by the FCC, so you can't use profanity, even if it's racial, so... waste of time for the American cable sphere.
But I get the principle that he's...
As for everyone who doesn't have to live under FCC tyranny, such as everyone else, yeah, you're right, I agree with Don Lemon, which is just censoring words, so censoring profanity, is kind of dumb. Like, what are you doing with your life? A whole other conversation, but we'll go to the next one here, in which we can see Don Lemon holding up a copy of, I think that's like the New York Times, isn't it? What is it? Oh no, sorry, Westview News over there, with the N-word on the screen. He just did it. And then he went a bit too far. Let's go to the next one here. But, yeah, this was a bit weird.
This does look like a 4chan edit.
Yeah, I always thought it was fake. No, it's real. You can go and check it out. It's on Secular Talk's channel 7 years ago. Secular Talk famously used to tweet things like this as well, but never mind.
Let's not call leftists out on their old edgy tweets, shall we?
Yeah, but the point here, I mean, like, this is making fun of him. The Young Turk made fun of him as well. They're like, oh, God, this is so stupid, until you consider the point he was making, which is that, no, if you censor words, well, if you censor profanity, you don't get the edge of the profanity, which means you don't get the feeling of the circumstance in which it was said. Which is demonstrably true. Like, this is the problem with censored spaces. This is why YouTube's terms of service in regards to swearing, which is why apparently we're not allowed to, because it would hurt the monetization, is just a big problem. It's gay. It's a pain in the ass.
Well, it's advertisers don't want their content associated with particular other types of content. That's what it is.
I hate this argument. It's like, oh, well, the advertisers have insisted on this. Yeah, but if YouTube just turned around and said no, where else are they going to go? Do you want to advertise to 1 billion people on planet Earth or not?
Yeah.
Who's got the power in that relationship? And it is the guys at YouTube who are deciding to be scoochy about it. But anyway, this is not what brought him down, amazingly. This was fine. No, he's done it before as well.
He carries his N-word card with him.
Literally,
everywhere he goes.
People listening, this is him back in the day. I love how Wolf Blitzer is sounding like, oh,
was
God.
When Don Lemon was saying in his 5 ways to improve your community, don't say the N-word. He says, a useful alternative, you can just carry your card around.
This is again him arguing about Barack Obama's speech and the censoring of it and blah, blah, blah. This is him on live TV holding up a card with it written on. As he says it as well, and then the white host next to him just looking distastefully like, God damn it.
Well, he does look like someone's just tried to jam something up his rear end there.
Yeah, and this isn't what brought him down. None of that. No. The thing that finally brings him down is culture changes so much that he makes a statement not in her prime around Nikki Haley, and his career is over.
Is this actually really affected him? Because
Yeah.
I know we had a laugh about it, but I just thought, oh, it's going to be one of those things, he'll just apologise and who cares?
Well, it took a little bit further than that, because the 2 women next to him were upset that he said that women sometimes aren't.
I always thought that Don Lemon was way too entrenched in the mainstream media sphere to be able to be touched by this kind of controversy.
Well, Mr. Lemon is, but Mr. Lemon was
Uncle Dom, on the other hand.
He was sent on a day off. So if you go here, the next one, we can see Tucker Carlson noted. There was a tweet put out saying that, sorry, not a tweet, there's the next episode of the show, which Mr. Lemon was not present. He's laughing his face.
I want the Project Veritas style video of Tucker Carlson going around the CNN offices looking for where they've locked up Don Lemon.
Well, Mr. Lemon was said to be on a holiday. Immediately after he made the statement that Nikki Haley wasn't in her prime, he decided, well, I'm going to the Caribbean for 2 weeks.
I'm getting some flashbacks to last segment. My God, he's gone on a well-earned vacation.
Yeah, apparently no, the vacation was into the CEO's office where he got a bollocking.
Oh, right.
For daring to say something such as maybe Nikki Haley's not in her prime, which again is not relevant to whether or not she can be president, but whatever.
Don Lemon just there like, listen,
something, right?
Can she have children? If not, she ain't a woman.
But imagine if he had said instead those 5 things the black community can do to improve itself. He'd be on his ass right now. Instead, he was sent for a bollocking, and the leader of the news organization said, we take this situation very seriously. He said that sometimes women aren't in their prime. Don't you know women are always in their prime? Which is what the prime means. Prime means all the time.
What do you think Logan Paul's new drink was about? It was about celebrating women, goddammit.
And no, his punishment is he's being sent on training. Re-education. He's going to be re-educated to know that women are always in their prime.
Which is your 80-year-old grandmother in a prime.
You know how those curves work with a top? That's where it's the prime, and then the rest of it, the rest of that curve, the rest of a bell curve is also the prime.
Okay.
Just get some arrows.
So whether you're here or here, there's no difference.
When a woman is born and when she is dead, she is still in her prime.
We just have it curve up that way for fun.
Yeah, you can see here the Hill reporting he's undergoing formal training to learn that the prime is at all times.
Cue Clockwork Orange montage.
I love how it is like it's a dog started pissing on the carpet situation. We're like, well, we sent him for training. If we can't do that, we're gonna have to send him to the farm. He's gonna have to go.
Uncle Don being the house newsreader that they have there, obviously.
I mean, that was how they refer to him now, if he dared to give those 5 points ever again. And I did find it funny how his old friend, of course, got the same treatment.
Oh, yeah.
It's just an Italian thing to harass with.
Me are familiar faces.
Yeah, the Groiper and the man.
The Groiper and the race straight.
That's how they've been described today by their own side. But the thing is, for all they're faking it, none of these people have made it. And that goes back to the South Park episode as well, and Harry and Meghan over there, because their existence is life or death, depending on their brand. And their brand just casts them as millionaire victims. I mean, like Don Lemon, I looked up. Do you know what he's getting paid? $5 million a year. You know what Rachel Maddow's getting paid right now to do her show?
Like $5 million a year.
$30 million a year.
How much?
$30 million.
30 million?
Yeah, for the Rachel Maddow show, in which she says Russia did it.
In which she says nothing that she thought up herself.
I have been handed this leaflet from the Clinton campaign that says Donald Trump, Russia. And now for $30 million.
We could have so much more of a lucrative existence if we just gave him our dignity and morals.
But then you can see what happened to Don Lemon. Why is he this shell of a human being at this point? A brand to be used instead of the authentic Mr. Lemon, who came out and said, yeah, here's how you improve the black community. Here's some tangible things you can do. The reason for that is, well, no, he's just a brand. He's a phony. He's a big fat phony.
He's a manufactured talking head. He's not in charge of his own destiny. He's not in charge of his own thoughts.
The only victim in all of this is actually sincerely these people. Meghan, Lemon, Harry, who just instead have to live their meaningless brands so they can go past go and collect $200. I almost feel sorry for them if it wasn't so much goddamn money.
And they chose that life.
But there you are. There's a South Park episode, which hit on something more closer than I thought. The recent explosion of old South Park content, which is very, very taboo. And also CNN, which used to be very, very taboo. In the same vein, as in, well, they said things that could actually help you. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast, The Lotus Eaters, you can go and look.
Tough Lover 27 was so right.
One of my favorite philosophers of the 20th century is a British philosopher called William David Ross. And he's associated with the intuitionist school in ethics. And he was saying that the method of ethics is different from the methods of science. And we shouldn't, for instance, try to make ethics into a natural science, because ethics, in a way, starts from many of our moral beliefs. There is plenty of room for revision, but we shouldn't entirely dismiss them. Now, to be fair, Rawls does admit this to a point with his method of reflective equilibrium, when he tries to say that we should somehow bring together and try to form a coherent set of beliefs between our general moral principles and our considerate judgments, but that's too abstract. It always boils down to what are our considerate judgments. And I think that Rawls does not pay close attention to it, and someone like Alasdair MacIntyre was saying the same thing, that if we look again at what constitutes a good life, we will see that it involves relations of partiality, such as being a family member, or being a friend, or being someone's neighbor. So all these relations, they give reasons that are reasons of partiality. And I would say that I think that it's common sense to say that each person values their own kids more than the kids of strangers. It doesn't, and that's the issue. It doesn't mean that you don't have to value other people. It means that you value your people more. And this is something that is really well captured by William David Ross, because
I've never read him. I don't know.
He's a brilliant philosopher, and he gives us the tools to have a much more sophisticated understanding of where we stand on particular issues. So, just to anticipate a bit something, if he were alive today, he could say, for instance, that there is a difference between obligations and obligations to an extent, or pro tanto, or prima facie obligations. So he could say there are all sorts of sources of moral reasons. And at the end of the day, we are weighing reasons. That's what moral deliberation involves. And he could say, for instance, that it doesn't, when we are saying that we value our own kids, it doesn't mean that we have we are not valuing other people, or that we should think that in order for us to value our kids, we shouldn't value other people, or that in order for us to value our community, we shouldn't value other communities.
Delivery on 30?
Yeah, sign in.
Sure, you might hold on.
So remember when we all thought that Alex Jones's proclamations that all of the celebrities are literal demons that want to eat babies, and we thought, what a goofy guy, he's just being hyperbolic. Oh, those were the days. What happened was they just started saying it in front of cameras, dancing around, shaking their backside, literally twerking it to Satan. Let's look at all the Batman villains and Baphomet worshippers that were at the Grammys this week. Alright? So, if you'd like to learn more about how most of our celebrity culture is satanic, you can subscribe to the website for £5 a month and watch content like
15-minute prisons.
If you'd like to learn more about how most of our celebrity culture is satanic, you can subscribe to the website for £5 a month and watch content like Harry and my podcast on the politics of Mulholland Drive. I didn't get it. I really didn't get it, but Harry did, and he made a brilliant explanation. Have you ever watched this film?
Never. Devil's Den.
Yes. It is David Lynch calling the whistle on what would essentially become Me Too and Harvey Weinstein about 15 years ahead of time.
Oh, that's what we call predictive programming.
Yes, and
allegedly.
He also implicates the women in sustaining the system itself, and ever since the 1930s, including all the progressive Hollywood starlets that were really against imperialism but were selling off their sisters to be exploited by blokes to get on the screen.
Oh, right. Oh, there's sort of a conspiracy theory about that, you know, or like, I don't know if I'm allowed to...
Is it going to break YouTube TOS?
I'm not sure, just this, you know, allegation about, you know, MK Ultra on female celebrities.
I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked in the slightest. as Ted Kaczynski was also involved in that. Also in here, I did mention the sort of corrosive effect of California culture, and I used The Weeknd's lyrics, going from Cali is the mission to now a African-American gentleman is leaving. Keep that in mind, because we'll be talking about The Weeknd later on.
Yeah.
But on to the first link. So recently Taylor Swift, who was obviously Stefan Molyneux got famous for saying the worst tweet of all time, saying that, oh, Taylor Swift's nearly 30 and half of her eggs are gone. She should probably hurry up and stop being a feminist because she'll be a great mother. She's now saying, doubling down, that she's a pro-LGBT and pro-abortion brand of Christianity is the real Christianity.
That's just a fallacy, though, isn't it?
Well, not according to the Church of England, of course.
Oh, yeah, the Church of England. I mean, anyone would be forgiven for thinking that Justin Welby actually doesn't like God very much. If you look at the trends, this seems like a person who genuinely does not like God.
Yeah, deliberate subversion.
Yeah, there's no other explanation for it.
Yeah, well, this is very much a Trojan horse, because she is obviously trying to supplant Christian ethics, the kind of things that you see celebrated in the country music circles, with the new progressive paradigm of sacrificing all responsibility by sacrificing your children, and celebrating rather than virtue, literal vice with pride parades. But let's see the kind of people who abide by these values. Let's scroll down through these Grammys 2023 costumes, John, please. So, Major Tom Daley there in a spacesuit is actually somehow the least egregious.
Yeah, I think he actually looks quite funky. In comparison.
I wouldn't say funky. He doesn't look like he's wrapped in the tinfoil that we're making our hats out of these days. Harry Styles on the far left, matches up politically, is wearing something that looks like that weird elephant in a kid's book.
He's just trying to float this idea that he's a gay man, I guess, because...
Didn't he do... So, Rory told me off air, he did a film recently about a police officer, and he was co-starring as a policeman who marries a woman so he can have a gay affair and not get prosecuted for it. And the co-star was a gay man, so he's just snogging a gay man for the entirety of the film, but still playing it straight.
It's just like, I mean, I think he is straight, but I think he is playing to, he is. I think he's playing to this whole idea of sort of subverting masculinity, and he obviously does it very well in that really ridiculous costume. It's such a shame, really, because he's really handsome, actually.
Yeah.
And he's just ruined it. He's ruined himself.
Right, he's tattooed himself like Jared Leto's Joker. Also,
I don't mind tattoos. I think they're all right. I have a tattoo.
Yeah, but he looks like, I don't know, it looks like a bathroom wall, and he's also got the tiles to go with it. He is dressed like a Weatherspoon's carpet. I drew the esoteric comparison on Twitter to Crazy Quill, which is a Batman villain from the Silver Age, and we both said, isn't it coincidental that his superpower is mind control?
Exactly. Which is sort of what these demons are about, because a prime example being Sam Smith, the demonic pimp, is what I got from that. With the
pimping makes me queasy, yeah.
With the pimp stick.
Yeah.
Odd.
If we can scroll down, John, I think there's a couple more in here, but just, I really don't understand. It's not the Met Gala, but everything's becoming more and more egregious.
Yeah, I think the theme for this genuinely was, I mean, to be a demon, I guess, because these aren't, the first ones that have dressed really bizarrely. They look kind of normal. She looks normal, but these aren't like Hollywood elite people. No,
well, someone who is obviously playing a crystal flute recently by one of the founding fathers of America is Lizzo. If we can go to this one, she's dressed up looking like an Axon from the original Doctor Who. It's meant to be some sort of floral gown, but she looks like the remnants of a time of the month.
I mean, oh right, okay. I mean, have you witnessed that?
It's not the most flattering of adornments.
No, she just looks like a giant red ball.
She looks like she's being born.
But this is fashion, though, Connor. Like, don't critique it. This is art. You know, it doesn't have any meaning. There's no symbolism.
Yeah.
It's just art.
Yes.
Leave them alone.
It's just self-expression. You just happen to be expressing yourself as a demonic entity.
Right.
Speaking of demonic entities, we also have Madonna, who...
Oh, gosh, let's not even get started on her.
Oh, apparently, well, we're going to have to, unfortunately. Look, just...
What has she done to her face?
She looks like the Bogdanov brothers. you know when people, like Macaulay Culkin and My Girl, people get stung to death by bees?
Yeah.
And they just start to...
That's how she looks, it's all the surgery that's just injected in her face. Like, I just want to say to Madonna, like, please, can you just let yourself grow old?
It's like Helen Mirren.
Yeah, what is wrong with growing old?
Well,
There's nothing wrong with it.
She's slowly turning into Miss Trunchbull.
Yeah, her
Like,
face looks like
dressing.
it's going to explode in that weird suit. I mean...
She does look like a corpse that's been dredged out of the river. It's unsettling. But she's always been someone deeply subversive.
Yeah.
But
This is the thing, right? Because whenever... I mean, I was pointing this out about the sort of symbolism and the degeneracy that they engage in. And a lot of the responses were saying, oh, but, you know, this celebrity has done that. Look at this music video from a decade ago. And it's like, do you realise you're actually furthering my point?
Yes.
Which the satanic symbolism in Hollywood is rife, and it has been for quite a while. It's only now, as the boundaries are continually being pushed, that it's actually getting more brazen. They're getting more confident with it. Now they actually don't even need to hide it. We all just clap like seals and like, oh, it's art. It's not art. It actually has an effect on the mind. And that's something that so many people don't realise, and it's dangerous.
I think the peak of egregiousness was going to be little Nas X giving a lap dance to Satan and putting his blood in the heel of Nikes. But the Grammys are actually attended by Jill Biden. So you've got the president's wife watching a bunch of trans and non-binary Satanists cavorting on stage.
Yeah.
Sponsored by some interesting people.
Yeah,
we'll see
Hollywood
shortly.
basically works for the Democrats, so
Oh,
I'm not surprised.
obviously. Yeah, so just to continue the flattery of Madonna, someone, if we can go to the next, please. Someone just decided to do a fantastic comparison between her and Pennywise, which...
That's how she genuinely does look.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to someone about it, and it almost gives, like, post-human vibes.
Yes.
And it reminds me almost like the costumes that they wear for the Hunger Games. And I watched the Hunger Games recently, again, because I'd read the books in high school, and we studied it in high school, and I watched it again. And this time, it wasn't entertaining. It almost felt sort of like a prophecy, as more and more of our celebrities are turning into the freaks that habituate the capital, you know, the capital bit in the Hunger Games. That's literally what it looks like.
As the mouse utopia worsens, I don't know if you know about John Calhoun's experiment,
No.
but he put mice in a massive box, gave them all the food and water they needed, but over time he constricted the space. And what ended up happening is the populations bifurcated into two. They bifurcated into the ones that stopped reproducing entirely, and they just started eating each other. And in the corner, there were ones called the beautiful ones, and all they did is sit there and groom themselves and masturbate all day.
Oh, right.
So what we're seeing is, as privation is worsening and state surveillance is worsening, and they're controlling our energy and our food and making us eat bugs, over there are the decadent types who are living in the capital, whether it's cultural capital or up on Capitol Hill in the States, and they are getting more and more flamboyant and ridiculous to demark themselves from we peasants.
I think that's a brilliant analysis.
Yeah, thank you very much. I paid it for a reason, I suppose.
I would agree with that.
So if we can go on to the next, I don't know why we're all surprised about Madonna, because she recently did this photo shoot for Vogue. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so for those who haven't, and for our audio listeners, if we can just click on the images, John, she recreated The Last Supper, but she did it with a bunch of dolls around her waist and as a sort of ribcage corset, mimicking the heads of babies.
Yeah.
And there's a literal demon on her right and left. Well, one of them's dressed as an angel, but he's got a skeleton. And then if we just go through, there's a bunch of androgynous and rather engorged people eating what looks like human flesh.
So just out and out mocking it. And the thing is, right, if it doesn't mean anything, and if it's all just stories that are absolutely ridiculous, why is it that celebrities continually feel the need to employ this sort of imagery if it doesn't mean anything?
They appropriate tradition.
Yeah.
If it's meaningless as they say, why do they keep hammering
Why
down
are they so obsessed with it? I mean, less and less people are identifying as Christian. I mean, let's just be honest. Less and less people are identifying as religious. Less and less people believe in God. Yet they still feel the need to recreate these scenes and this sort of imagery. It clearly means something. If it didn't, they would just ignore it. That would be the fastest way to make religion irrelevant. It would be to just ignore it.
Yeah, well, my thesis on it is that if you're sort of like obsessed with indulging in vice and you just feel compelled to do something repetitively, either you put very strict constraints on your appetite, which Christianity does. Read the letters of Paul if you think you can get away with doing anything slightly vicey in Christianity, or you make society accommodate your obsessions, and it gets to the point where celebrating it you think will ease the screaming of your conscience inside of you, because you start to blame arbitrary societal standards rather than something which is good for you, or long baked traditions that conserve the health of the community for why you feel so bad. And you think that if enforcing everyone else to turn off their judgment, to abandon their religion, to abandon their standards, and affirm or even celebrate with a pride parade your decadent desires, you'll feel better about yourself. And all that ends up happening is that people end up doing orgies while the rest of the civilization's burning around them. They don't notice.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that. It's literally just about ego with these people, unfortunately.
If we go on to the next one as well, Charlie XCX was at least a bit honest. She said people don't want to see hot evil girls thrive, which is why that she wasn't nominated for a Grammy.
This is such a shame about her, you know.
Yeah, she's
Because
not
I like her music. Well, I liked her music until my friend showed me a music video of hers that just looks wrong. And you know, you can really feel when it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, she was at a funeral, she was wearing all black, dancing on black and white tiles. It was just really dark, nasty. Yeah, it was just nasty. You could feel it. Like, you can see it, especially with Sam Smith's performance. I think we'll go on to that. But you can feel the darkness that comes from them. It doesn't actually feel good to watch. So after that, I stopped listening to her as well, because it's like, I don't need that energy.
There's something unwholesome here in my gut telling me that
Yeah.
you're leading me a place I don't want to go.
Yeah, and now it's I'm a hot, evil girl. I mean,
Yep.
what does that mean?
Well, I'm glad that she was at least honest to say that she's evil, because if she's mired enough in the world and she recognises, I've had to compromise all of my values to get here.
Yeah.
Cheers for the mask off moment, love.
Yeah.
The others weren't saying it, they were just dressing like it. So if we can go on to the next one, we do have Sam Smith, who showed up with the Addams Family, apparently. This is just sort of... Is that the guy from Outcast in the back doing Hey Ya? It's deliberately androgynous.
Yeah,
Deliberately provocative. But also I did see people raise the point of where it's kind of anodyne now because it's expected to be this performative.
Yeah.
Again, Lil Nas X did this a couple of years ago, and he did it while still being recommended by the YouTube Kids algorithm.
Which is just disgusting.
He used to sing on Sesame Street.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Old Town Road was on like kids pop party albums in the UK, and then he immediately did the one where he's lap dancing in front of Satan.
They always do that. They go nice and then they go really, really weird.
I wonder why
and
you.
Sam Smith is just a casualty of that. You know, I was a real fan of Sam Smith. I'm actually sad.
Right.
You know the song Latch that he did a cover of. Oh no, I'm latching onto you.
No,
that
I
song.
don't. No.
Oh,
But cheers for the
what
rendition.
music do you listen to?
Right, well, the one I'm most sad about, actually, and you're going to really judge me for this, because I've been judged by the viewers before, I quite like Billie Eilish, and...
Oh,
I do.
I like one song of hers.
I like pretty much all her songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I just feel like she just whispers. Like, she just whispers into the mic over a beat. I just don't really see how
she's
it's
alright.
music.
She's in my range. So,
Oh.
what I reckon... So, what she used to do is do performance pieces in character, talking about how everything's kind of miserable and I want to change my condition. That's what everything I wanted was like. And
Oh, that's the song I like.
It's great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, as soon as she started talking off air, you realised, oh, you're just a brain-dead leftist.
Yeah.
Like, you're performing to endorse Joe Biden at the Democratic National Convention and dancing around in a graveyard.
Just a puppet.
Yeah, you're singing about abortion at
There was
Glastonbury.
one music video, and she said that this was about climate change, where she was literally a fallen
all the good girls
angel.
go to hell. And
Yeah.
and that's what the BBC said it was about, but there's one line in it, and it says, when the waters start to rise, and that's meant to be a biblical flood analogy, because she's talking about God, but she does call God a woman.
Is she
in that.
coming up with this? That's the part. I
No.
don't think she is.
No. She's been astroturfed. So her mum was a famous actress. She was in Mass Effect, and then her brother was writing most of her songs. And have you seen who her brother's girlfriend is?
No, I haven't.
1-to-1 of Billie Eilish.
Ew, that's odd.
Bit weird. And then
Yeah,
her boyfriend now is 20 years older, and they dressed up as a granddad
I
and
saw
a
that.
baby in a diaper for Halloween.
Fetishizing paedophilia and making
Yeah.
it acceptable, but then in those circles, they probably all think it's hilarious, don't they?
Same circles.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Satanism imagery has anything relevant.
Oh.
So, on to the next. This is them accepting the award, and he's up there with Kim Petras, who Kim is a transgender woman. I think I've got that right, because Kim was born in Germany as Tim, and was one of the interview with Philip Schofield on This Morning about this, was one of the world's youngest sex changes.
Yeah.
And if this isn't just grooming this person
It's
into
just,
being...
yeah, it is. It's just so unsettling, especially because it's so mainstream. I'm actually speechless. I mean, look, I don't have a problem with her being transgender. Him, I mean, I prefer to say him, if I'm being honest. But it's the point that it's popularized now. It's now trendy to be this way. And I don't know if I'm still allowed to say this, but, you know, it is condition.
We're going to have to blank that out for YouTube.
Right.
You're actually not allowed to say that on YouTube. So if you want to find out exactly what Dominique said, you can go to our website.
Right. Oh, apologies.
Well, no, but I'll put it this way, right? Even if you're kind of apathetic to the surgery being maybe a solution for some people's ailments, after speaking with Richie Herron, no. I don't ever think something so barbarous can be administered to people and they can feel good about themselves. I don't think it's fair to put this on people, because you are taking away the prospect of a family from them. You are promising them that they will be this thing that they desperately want to be, and they never will be. And you can't erase the memories of who they used to be either.
Yeah.
Just creating a disintegrated person. And so, unfortunately, what you have is people that realise that, and that's why the suicide rate's very high, or people that realise it and again need to transform all of society around them in order to ail their screaming conscience.
Yeah, it's just narcissism. And
well, it's a sunken cost fallacy as well, because if these people have genuinely gone through all those steps and they've been convinced that the surgery will fix them, and it doesn't, they need to terraform the world. They need to speak the world into being, like a reverse incarnation of Christ, in order to make themselves feel better. And that's why this sort of stuff is pushed to the forefront. When you said it was now mainstream, Kim Petras in this speech said, all these years going through my head of people saying, I'll be a niche artist because I'm transgender, my music would only ever play in gay clubs. What's wrong with that? Because I love gay clubs, but now I've got a Grammy for making gay club music with my friend. So the whole world's had to be turned into a gay club in order to make you feel better.
Yeah, essentially. And it's sad, but
I wonder why the birth rate's
at
so
least
low.
she's got a Grammy. Really important.
Yeah, really low numbers of people watching that.
But it's a Grammy, okay? It's a Grammy.
Great, wonderful. So if we can just go on to the next bit, this was the funniest part of their performance. There should be just scroll down please, John. I don't think it's in here. If we go on to the next one please, it's just on Twitter. There we go. This was the most entertaining part. So you see the end of the performance, Sam Smith being consumed by fake demons, going down into hell.
God.
And then hell itself comes up on screen, because when they cut to an ad break, the Grammys is sponsored by...
Wait for it.
Pfizer!
Pfizer!
Of course it's sponsored by Pfizer.
Lovely.
A company that's never done anything wrong on YouTube. It's safe and effective.
Lovely. And that is... if that isn't irony, I don't know what is.
I don't know if it is irony. I think it's deliberate.
Yeah.
But they must be sitting in a boardroom going, you know what's going to really rile them up the wrong way?
We'll have Sam Smith being consumed by demons, and then we'll advertise
The
our
mark
injection.
of the beast. Yeah. Exactly. But this has been going on for ages. Like, this is nothing new. Again, it's anodyne, because we've had a bunch of celebrities do this sort of boring crap just to try and stay relevant. And this was just recently as well. If you go on to the next one, please, John. There's, as you pointed out, Doja Cat is dressed as a demon at Paris Fashion Week.
This is so sad as well.
Looks like Reptile from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, she looks like a freak. And the thing is that, I mean, I don't know whether it's designed to deliberately make herself look unattractive. She did a video about, you know, not wanting to look FUCK-able all of the time.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know what has happened to her. I feel like something maybe has happened to her. But all of a sudden she just started shaving off her eyebrows, shaved off her hair on her head.
Yeah.
She recently had a birthday party that was, can you guess what the theme was?
Go on.
Illuminati was the theme. She had the Freemason sign on her birthday cake.
Right, so either this is just being deliberately provocative to try and stay relevant, or the woman's genuinely going through something.
Yeah.
She's quite a pretty girl, and now she is turning herself into some kind of
Yeah,
androgynous
but I think
alien.
the birthday party that was before she started actually doing all of this.
Right.
So, make of that what you will.
I wonder who the attendees of said birthday party were then. Also, there's Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox.
Oh, don't get me started on them too.
Who, this is, I'm not going to say offensive because I'm not offended by anything, but just unbelievably cringeworthy.
Do you know what's interesting is that they use all of this imagery, and they drink each other's blood for ritual purposes.
Yes.
Yeah. My sister directed me to a video, and where she was speaking about her experience on psychedelics. I can't remember which one it was. It was either ayahuasca. I think it was ayahuasca or something like ayahuasca. And she said that she literally went to hell. And because ayahuasca is obviously meant to strip back all of the sort of mechanisms that we use to shield ourselves from reality, her reality was actually in hell. So she must be a genuinely despicable person.
So she's pierced the veil and talked to the Clockwork Elves and decided to just let them take over.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Well, again, though, both of these people are parents to different people's kids, and your kids can see you doing it. Don't get me wrong, I've got terrible taste in women. I think she's quite attractive.
She is. No, she is.
That's just
she is. I think she's gone a bit far with the surgery, though, but she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
But, like...
Have some propriety, woman.
Yeah, just deliberately just ruining themselves. And again, employing this imagery.
Again, if it was meaningless, they wouldn't appropriate it.
Exactly.
So.
And this is the thing, when I speak about, the impact that music has, it might sound a bit hippie, but literally everything is vibration, and the music that we listen to is vibration, and there are certain frequencies that can make us feel a certain way. And although I knew this already, I was doing some research on it, and there are so many studies. Like, even for example, in dementia patients, we have music memory. Our music memory, even when you have dementias or Alzheimer's, is actually not affected. So you can play an Alzheimer's or dementia patient a familiar song, and scientists have shown that they can actually use that in order for them to be able to connect with loved ones, because that memory is ingrained, and a lot of us actually don't realise it. So when we're talking about Sam Smith's song Unholy, and I was saying this to you, I was doing a bit of research, and the song itself is 131 beats per minute, and translated into hertz is about 2.1 hertz, and that frequency actually translates into delta brainwaves, and delta brainwaves in our brain are most found when we are asleep, or when we're in a trance, or when we are hypnotized. So the music we listen to literally has the ability to hypnotize us. Why do you think that when you listen to a song and don't even like it, you find yourself singing it the next day? Because our brain registers things that we do not consciously realize that we're consuming. So when people say, oh, it's just music, it's just a song, it's not just a song. You are effectively being programmed. And that's why I've deleted most of my earlier playlists that I used to listen to, because I used to think it was just music, but it's not, and I scared the shit out of myself, and I deleted my playlists.
Yeah, it does shape your reality. It's like so we cover the Mass Effect series of games on the channel, and in it there's these giant leviathanic metal creatures that land on the Earth and harvest humans and turn you into a transhuman. And,
oh, God.
Well, the way they get you to go along with their plans is first they send out a certain frequency that's like a bellowing to make you compliant, so they'll get people who aren't cybernetically integrated to convince their fellow species to just go along with the machine's plans. So first they'll just involuntarily conscript you into their schemes, and then they'll convert you into being literal cyborg demons.
Right.
Yeah, and also I just suppose it's a coincidence the World Economic Forum has now deleted, but it's archived, an article on their website from 2018 talking about mind control sonic weapons.
What?
Not joking. Look it up, people. It's there. I'll tweet it out afterwards. There we go.
Yeah, they're obsessed with it. They're obsessed with it. Especially Klaus Schwab. He did a conference thing, a World Economic Forum thing, where he basically was like, imagine 10 years from now, we're all connected and we can literally read each other's minds.
I love really bad accent. Off with an impression. Yeah, not quite Mark Stein level, but you get it.
Yeah,
there, don't worry.
Away. I mean, I'm good at accents, but that'll be for another day.
That was like Jesse from Little Mix trying to be Jamaican. It ain't gonna happen.
I'll stop.
All right, next. Obviously, this is kind of wearing its course now because Demi Lovato tried this. The woman who's unbelievably desperate to be relevant. She did this album cover where she's on a crucifix-shaped dirty mattress in bondage with her hair shaved off, and the album is called Holy F with a V in it, and so the Advertising Standards Authority banned it for possibly offending Christians.
Thank you.
Yep. Which I'm not offended. I just think it's pathetic. But the interesting thing was,
does she look like that still?
Yeah.
Oh, she's gone back. She looks a bit more normal now, because before she looked really, really bad before.
That's normal.
She looks normal compared to how she was before.
I preferred her when she was on heroin. It's funny though. This is the first of her albums ever to not yield a top 50 single in the Billboard 100.
I wonder why.
So people just don't care about your performative attention-seeking. The interesting thing about all of this, though, just to finish on, speaking of The Weeknd from the start of the segment, he predicted all of this. If you can just play some stuff in the background, John, while we're talking. This is his music video from Save Your Tears. I don't know if you know the song.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Oh, I really like that song.
I don't
It's
like
great.
it.
I got bought his concert tickets, but I don't think I'm going to be getting those now.
Oh.
Look at his face.
Like that.
He's had fake surgery in the thing.
Right.
This looks almost like Madonna's. He's wearing the bright red suit. He literally gets sent to hell later on for shooting himself in the face for screwing up his relationship. And he's performing at a mock-up of the Grammys because he wasn't nominated for a Grammy, and they've all got fake masks on, and he literally urinates on their faces.
Right, okay.
This is really weird about the fact that Sam Smith's music video was fake urination on his face.
Yeah.
Madonna's got the surgery, performs like a Satanist, and then descends into hell before Dawn FM kicks off his next album.
So, what, I mean, okay, this theory that you've got is really, really interesting because I was originally a really big Weeknd fan. Like, I was obsessed with The Weeknd, actually. And then, since he, like, started becoming more mainstream, number one, the music has gotten worse, in my opinion.
I think it's become a bit of a resurgence now that he's basically emulating Michael Jackson.
Right, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've not listened to anything since he did that Starboy one. That song in itself is good. Was the album called Starboy?
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, since then I've just switched off a bit, but I thought it was because he's gone like all demonic Hollywood. That's why I stopped listening to him, but you believe...
He's deliberately subverting it. That's the point. So in one of the videos, it's Way Too Late, his decapitated head is found in the hills, the Hollywood Hills, where he shot the Hills music video. It's found by two women addicted to surgery who reattach his head to a gigolo they hire and then have sex with the corpse. And it's just saying that these women are interchangeable, they will just shag you for status, and that he feels incredibly empty and slowly being killed by this. And then Dawn FM is meant to be being him locked in purgatory, going through hell for messing up his relationships, for buying into that culture beforehand. And that's why it's gone from his early album saying Cali is the mission to now leaving. He's got an entire song about how LA girls will cheat on you and they all look the same.
Okay.
It's quite subversive, actually. It's quite interesting.
All right. No, I like that interpretation of it, because since you've said that, I was watching it before I came, and I sort of saw it in a different way. So I might become a Weeknd listener again.
I mean, I've just alienated our entire audience here. I'm going to criticise my music.
I was surprised that you listened to The Weeknd. I won't lie.
Yeah, I quite like it. So, basically, modern culture is incredibly satanic. It's not really worth your time, and
also music brainwashes you.
Yeah.
So be aware of it.
Life imitates art.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Epoch series, this one, the Terra Nova Expedition. If you'd like to find out what else Lotus Eaters is putting out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com.
So last time you were here, Dominique, we covered Ectolife. You remember the proof of concept facility for birthing babies in those little chambers?
How could I forget?
Well, fortunately, it seems like they've listened to our criticism. So now we've moved on from Matrix-style birthing facilities, because obviously this would adversely affect child development by playing Spotify for a Ring doorbell, and remove women entirely from the reproductive process, like it's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Worry not, women. Your concerns have been heard. Rather than outsource gestation to these pods, your corpse is now going to be a vessel for transgender people's offspring.
That makes me feel so much better.
Yes, you're going to get brain damage for trans rights. Now, of course, me being a seasoned misogynist would never advocate for this, but it seems the progressives are really, really happy about this. Let's look into the ethically murky world of surrogacy. First of all, an exclusive from the Daily Mail, womb transplants for trans women are very likely in the near future, claim top facility experts. Read expert as ideologue, I would advise.
Yeah.
Trans women will be able to get life-changing womb transplant in the near future. The huge scientific breakthrough would give biological males the chance to carry a child, a feat currently impossible. Nature is cruel. Infertile women around the world have already given birth thanks to the pioneering op. Only tiny modifications will be needed to make it a reality for men too. According to world-renowned voices in the transplantation field, wombs could have come from deceased women and donors who have decided to have their own reproductive organs removed, which can happen when women decide to become men. We're literally body swapping.
when women decide to become men.
So not only is the Daily Mail, unfortunately, abiding by the idea that if you just swap body parts, you will be a brand new person, but also what is with the pathology that we need to invert all genders? It's just to perpetuate revolution endlessly. It treats the material plane as some kind of, as Mao once said, biology and nature are revolutionary enemies. It's nuts.
Where will it end?
won't.
Where will it end? And it won't. And that is the dangerous thing. How far are these people willing to take this? I don't want to live in a world where a man can have a womb implanted inside of him, and then he can start running around going, you know, basically, women, you are meaningless because look at me. I can have a baby too. I don't really think, I mean, maybe in the future they'll be able to do something like this, but
they tried to once with the fella that was in the Danish Girl, the Eddie Redmayne film.
Oh, I read that.
Yeah,
I watched it.
He died because they tried implanting a womb. It was Magnus Hirschfeld, I think, which was the sexologist in Weimar, Germany, doing gender transition changes on children. And they implanted a womb in him, and then he died because his body rejected the organ and he got an infection.
Wow.
Yeah, but obviously men can't give birth anyway because their pelvis is so narrow. So unless you like break their entire lower body,
it would just be C-section. I think you could like.
Well, no, they've actually talked about connecting the neo-vagina up to the womb and allowing you to. Yeah, I know.
I think what the question is though, again, because when it comes to obviously women having babies, there's a point to it. So we emit certain hormones that connect us. Oxytocin's the biggest one, that basically connects us with the child when it's born. As far as I'm aware, would men be capable of doing that?
Oh, they're going to take
birth?
artificial ones. They actually say that in here. They're going to put you on a hormone replacement therapy. They're going to connect your neo-vagina up to your new other woman's womb, and they're going to have to break your pelvis so you can give birth authentically. I personally think that this is like a deeply religious project. So Carl and I have discussed
What
this
religion
before.
is that?
Gnosticism. So James Lindsay said this, Carl and I have discussed this before, of where it's the idea that the world, the material world, has been created by a capricious like sub-deity, like a demon.
Oh, I know
Yeah.
this. I was looking into this.
And distance from the true God who made things truly, and that's our souls imprisoned in these material fleshy bodies. A bit like
I don't
Plato.
entirely disagree with that personally.
The problem is though, if your gendered soul is mismatched with your body because this sub-deity has inflicted this great cruelty on you, then it becomes a liberation theology, a moral virtue, to augment your body to be in line with your true authentic self. So it becomes an act of heroism to actually chop your nuts off and transplant a womb into you.
I suppose, but then the argument would probably be that the true creator does not make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're all a product of the true creator. She's actually, so the true creator that they refer to, it's a woman, and she's called Sophia.
Yes.
Sophia is the true one, and the fake masculine god is actually called Yaldabaoth. And in some ways, I sort of understand where they're going with it. I don't entirely agree, but I think that if that were true, then surely this creator wouldn't make mistakes. And in terms of masculine and feminine energy, it has a purpose.
It's complementary.
Yeah, so to subvert that, even in that sense, would be wrong.
Yeah, but their idea is kind of similar to Rousseau in that originally we were free and everywhere we're born in chains.
Yeah.
Judith Butler wrote something very similar in Gender Trouble. The idea is that these cultural artifices of assigning sex at birth have been imposed on us and keep us from truly aligning with who we are inside. I can see your brow furrowed. It's not meant to make sense. It's basically a project to abolish all bodily constraints and free the will. This is why you're seeing the World Economic Forum types want to go into the metaverse and stimulate their brains endlessly.
But then again, it sort of feeds back into religion in terms of Satanism, because their belief is that they are God. So
do what thou wills, not what God wills.
Aleister Crowley. The Hollywood elite are a big fan of him as well. In that sense, you are God. So if you are God and you are I believe we do create our reality, but I think they slightly go in a different direction, because they believe that there are no consequences to creating that reality, and if there are consequences, the consequences don't matter, because if you're God, who cares about the consequences? I mean, there are none. So in that sense, if you could literally mutilate your body and do all of this, you're God.
Yes.
You can create whatever the hell you want.
It's Promethean ambition,
Yeah.
one doomed to fail, and that's why they get so resentful and revolutionary, and they make us all believe in their delusional worldview Otherwise, they just call us bigots. So, academics behind the claim carried out North America's first womb transplant from a deceased donor, which resulted in the birth of a child. The team from the prestigious Cleveland Clinic in Ohio wrote about the possibility of performing the surgery on a biological man in fertility and sterility. Campaigners argue transgender women should have the same rights to carry a child as a woman born female. Just for those who need to hear it, you don't have a right to a child. The child is not some sort of handbag pug to carry around.
You don't have a right to a child.
You're meant to live in service to your children. You're not meant to have them as some kind of accessory.
Yeah.
Also, to be otherwise is like to treat women who are tragically infertile from something like endometriosis as having their rights violated by nature, which is an oxymoron because you can't express your rights without the natural body. So, again, not meant to make sense.
Not meant to make sense.
It's likely the first step that would be a trans woman undergoing a vaginoplasty, so their body is more similar to that of a biological woman. Oh, you just cut your bits off and you're instantly a woman. The extensive operation involves creating a neo-vagina using tissue from elsewhere in the body, such as the penis or a section of the bowel, and provides a base to attach a transplanted womb. The process would also likely involve the removal of testicles to stop the production of male hormones that could interfere with a future baby, with sperm being frozen for potential future fertility treatment.
You're just going to be killing kids trying to make this happen.
You're going to be having your own. Theoretically, this could see trans women get pregnant with their own babies, similar to biological women who can do IVF using their own pre-harvested eggs. So you'll have your sperm frozen, then you'll create a neo-vagina, then you'll implant the womb, and then you'll impregnate yourself using your own sperm.
Why would you even want to go through all that effort?
Narcissism. Deep narcissism. You want your own pet project, literally. Currently, uterus transplants are only available for reproductive purposes, are normally removed following the birth of a single child, but sometimes are kept for one or two. But a trans woman might, in theory, want to keep their womb for longer as part of treating their gender dysphoria by allowing them to menstruate. Authors said this prospect could carry unknown dangers to the patient.
Oh, you think? Like... Yeah. You think forcing the body to do something that it actually is not supposed to do might have some consequences?
Also taking lots of immunosuppressant drugs and at the same time cutting your reproductive organs off, which release hormones which do regulate your immune system. When I was talking to Richie Herron, for example, he said, ever since this has been done to me, I've just been ill all the time because I've just got no immune system left. There's been about...
Is he a trans man or a trans?
He's a bloke who was convinced to go through the full surgery, had it botched. We have an amazing interview with him on our website. It's the most harrowing story I've ever heard, and he's currently, very successfully, the first person to sue the NHS for gender transition treatment. Insightful, sad stuff. Hence why none of this should be encouraged. It's just not going to help people. You're just pushing them down a path which will lead them to sterilize themselves. Dr. Rebecca Flick, lead author of the new article, said not opening the surgery up to trans women would be a form of discrimination. As we increasingly recognize a history of inequality and discrimination for transgender women, we must question whether it is acceptable that transgender women were denied access to clinical trials based on their gender identity and trans status. She added that giving trans women wombs would help address the mental anguish they suffered by not being able to fully embrace their gender identity. Further, as studies accumulate revealing high levels of depression and suicidality in trans women and demonstrate the emotional impact of reduced procreative ability in this population, we must consider the potential benefits of bringing uterus transplantation into trans women. The first uterus transplant in a transgender female in the 21st century is anticipated to take place within the next few years, if not sooner.
I don't want to live this.
I
just want to get off.
So,
please, I'm actually a bit scared to even have kids. I think I'm probably gonna have to homeschool them because by the time I have children, like I wonder where we will be.
Yeah.
Essentially, it'll be 10 times worse. So I don't think I'll even send them into school.
No, I don't trust the state school. I don't even trust most private schools because I've seen some of the diversity and inclusion department doctrine that private schools are using, and they are not telling the fee-paying parents if their child is socially transitioning while in school. That's their safeguarding policy. Yeah, they don't tell the parents, so they are interceding between the parent and child.
The state is becoming the parent.
Well, Joe Biden's one of his education directors, said that parents are not the primary stakeholder in children's education. Who is?
Exactly, them, because obviously they want control. And this is the thing, sort of what comes to mind with this is like, I feel like they want us to be increasingly disconnected, because if you can force someone to have a child that's not meant to have a child, there is no way that they'll be able to sustain the same sort of connection that a mother would have with a child, and all you'll create is just legions of confused and disconnected children. And when you're confused and disconnected, funnily enough, you're easier to control, and also I think probably a bit more of a narcissist, so the cycle just continues and continues. To be honest, I can't even really laugh at this. I think it's really, really sad.
Yeah, well, this is also a tenet of the abolition of constraints on the will, because Rousseau believed in returning to the noble savage state, where we're all just sort of wandering around atomized in nature.
Wasn't he a bit of a tyrant, though? At the
Rousseau,
same time?
yeah.
He said we should be forced to be free.
Yeah, he believed in the general will, which was a state that provides everything, but that you were free to just consume and protected at all times, and only had civil rights rather than personal rights. And because you returned into a state of nature, you had no relationships. You didn't have to commit to anyone. So nature provides, but you have no intimate ties. Sounds an awful lot like us being pod people plugged into the metaverse forever, but not actually sleeping with each other, having children, things like that.
We're all free, but if you choose not to be free, there are consequences.
Yeah, it's the room problem. It's is the man free who never knows he's locked in the room, never wants to leave, but is locked in there and just plays computer games?
Oh, it's like the Plato cave analogy.
Yeah, almost exactly. So where are they getting all these whims from? We go over to Redux. Turns out an entry from the journal Theoretical Medicine and Bioethics is prompting outrage from women on social media after theorizing that the bodies of vegetative or brain-dead female patients could be utilized as whole-body gestational surrogates. The article, originally published in November 2022, is titled Whole-Body Gestational Donation and floats the concept of utilizing women's vegetative entire bodies as surrogates for prospective parents who wish to have children but cannot or prefer to gestate. Written by Anna Major. I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce your name right. Professor of practical philosophy at the University of Oslo, Norway, the article proposes that it may be viable to utilize the donated bodies of women for gestational purposes in the same manner as donated organs are used. I suggest, if we're happy to accept organ donation in general, the issues raised by the whole body gestational donation are differences of degree rather than substantive new concerns.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, isn't it? Because we do it step by step. I don't know what your view on it is, but even for me personally, I'm not sure if I want my organs used for things after I die. I just think it makes me feel uncomfortable.
It makes me feel slightly uncomfortable. I'm kind of okay if it's life-saving. I don't want anyone to take my eyes, though. That's genuinely really weird. That's one thing that can be donated, and I feel like anyone else looking out of my eyes is just concerning, especially because they're the windows of the soul.
And it's been found that, particularly in one case of heart transplant, a lot of people find themselves craving the same things as the past person that was dead. It's not just an organ. You are left over.
That's really strange.
Yeah, your energy is left over. I don't want my organs.
Well, those of them are going to be 3D printed soon, so that might avert that.
All right. There's
but
a solution.
But then it's going to get way worse, because then you're just going to be able to 3D print wombs if you're going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to 3D print
technology, eh?
Yeah. Schmader similarly theorizes that the bodies of brain-dead males could potentially be used to gestate surrogate embryos as well. So a man in a coma will have a womb transplant from either a dead woman or a woman in a coma and gestate the baby as an incubator while in the coma. So does that mean that as a man, if you're in a coma, you could be involuntarily transitioned to give birth while you're in a coma?
Sounds like it.
That's horrifying. Yep.
Cool. Yep. Criminal?
Where did
Can it be criminal?
God knows anymore. I mean, the Canadian government's literally killing people and they're trying to bring it over here, so...
What do these people think the body is? I mean, I know you've said that they view it as a constraint, but like...
A fleshy prison, sounds like.
A prison that can just be modified and picked apart and... Interesting.
Well, that's what Simone de Beauvoir believed, and that's where this has all come from. So if you subscribe to our website for £5 a month, you can watch me put Carl through 2.5 hours of The Second Sex, a 900-page book that literally says that women should enter the workforce en masse, sterilise themselves, and we should have gender communism till the whole world is depopulated.
She looks scary.
Yeah, this is called the Feminist Bible.
Right.
This is where it all came from. Like, every idea of feminism came from this one place, and it ends up in a planet without people anymore.
A planet without people?
Yeah, so she hated humanity so much that she said that we should, like, there is no biological difference between the sexes, and that all pregnancy and childbirth is against the actual nature of woman, which she defined as full independence from men, which means that you have to enter the workforce en masse, which basically means be like a man, so rebel against biology, which means having no kids. She was a deeply repressed lesbian who killed her own children, so...
Really?
Yeah, she had loads of abortions.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's nice.
All philosophy is projection, and we're living in this paradigm. Brilliant. Who are the recipients going to be? I tell you what, we won't play the actual clip, John, just for time, but I don't know if you saw this, but this was a transgender mother of 2 transgender kids.
And you think and people think that's normal to have a transgender mother, a transgender partner, and 2 transgender kids.
Yeah, the statistical likelihood of that are next to none.
There's something funny going on in that house. Obviously.
Yeah, we don't allege anything here, YouTube, but we...
In my opinion, in my personal opinion.
We are sure this is a great, stunning and brave mother who definitely doesn't look like the slug from Monsters Inc. On to the next one. There's also this kind of person, and the reason I chose this story that happened today is because this happened in Scotland, funnily enough. A transgender butcher has been charged in connection with the disappearance of an 11-year-old girl, so not all trans people are stunning and brave. Andrew George Miller, who is known locally as Amy, is due to appear at...
Amy. Go on.
Sacred Sheriff Court on Thursday after his arrest on Monday night. A major search operation including mounted rescue teams and police divers was launched following the disappearance of a child from Galashiels town centre on Sunday evening. After more than a day, she was discovered safe and well, with an investigation centering on a property in Gattonside, 3 miles from where she'd last been seen. Police referred to Miller, who locals said he had presented himself as a transgender female for several years, as 53-year-old Scotland man, in contrast to Nicola Sturgeon's push to introduce sex self-identification laws in Scotland. And we see here again the trans women are only women as long as they don't commit crime standard that Nicola Sturgeon has been trying to deploy with Isla Fisher.
I loved that interview that she did.
But what is to stop Isla Fisher, or this person, even in prison, from having a womb transplant? Because wouldn't it be their human right to gender-affirming care?
You wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah, kind of worrying. It seems like the public isn't having it though, because last week Ella Whelan went on with a member of the Scottish Parliament and decided to interrogate her on if trans women are women, and specifically if Isla Fisher was a woman. And I just thought we'd have a watch, because Callum has the thesis that basically the TERFs, I hate the term radical feminism, but people who acknowledge biology and are kind of sensible are winning in the court of public opinion. And I think the reaction of the Question Time audience, if you haven't seen this clip yet, definitely demonstrates this is the case. If we can play, please, John.
Well, Jenny says that language is very important, and I agree. And I think most people at home will have noticed that you kept saying the individual. But I mean, you have to beg the question, is Adam Graham the double rapist? A man
who now calls himself Isla.
Fine, if that's what he wants to do. A man or a woman? Because the question at hand is not whether this rapist should serve a sentence for rape. It's whether this individual is a man or a woman, and therefore which prison he or she goes into. So what is your answer? Is this individual a man or a woman?
I'm sorry, this individual is a rapist.
No, we know that. I want to know, is this individual a man or a woman?
Please? The First Minister was asked this question today at First Minister's Question Time. She gave the response.
Very confusing answer.
If you let me speak. She gave the response that she didn't know enough about the individual in question. I would say likewise. But I think the most important thing in this case, we have to be very careful, because we trust the Scottish Prison Service to make these judgments on behalf of Scottish ministers. That is their role, that is their job. And it's also worth saying, to the point in relation to reviews, there are 2 reviews underway at the moment in Scotland, one in relation to the case that was previously discussed.
You haven't answered the
and that will
question.
report tomorrow, and the second is being undertaken by the Scottish Prison Service and will report directly to Scottish ministers. It is absolutely essential. We trust the Prison Service to make these
You haven't
judgments
answered
to
the
keep
question.
our prison population safe. I have answered the question.
No, you haven't. You haven't. But can I just say, if I can cut it, the reason why I think this is
Jenny one more chance to answer the question.
Carry on. Yeah.
Because the audience
I'd love
they
to
want
hear
an
your
answer.
answer. I really would.
This individual is a rapist. That is the most important thing.
I have to correct myself as well. I've been saying Isla Fisher the entire time. It's Isla Bryson. Isla Fisher's the actress married to Sacha Baron Cohen, which I now feel bad about. I do love how, though, so we're meant to immediately defer to someone else's self-definition, their pronouns of what is their authentic lived experience, their reality. But as soon as it becomes politically inexpedient to say that this rapist is a woman, we've got to defer to bureaucracy, the received wisdom of the chain, so we can keep passing the buck. Or you could just say biological fact.
Yeah, or you could have just said that it's a man, which is just true. And the fact that she felt the need to use all of those words without actually saying anything just really does signify the the loops that they find themselves in when they're literally, I like to phrase it, they think themselves stupid. You're thinking so much and you're trying to, compartmentalize all of these different facets of what is that this is a male rapist, a male rapist, that's trying to try his luck and get into a female prison because he knows he'll probably be treated better there and probably won't get the SHIT kicked out of him.
Yeah, their pathological compassion has led them to intellectually snooker themselves.
Yeah.
And now they just look embarrassing in front of everyday audiences. And to nature itself, so it looks like nature's rebelling. I thought we'd finish on this. You know the rainbow crosswalks that have been painted everywhere?
I've seen this.
Yeah, the horses really don't like going near them because...
Who would have thought it's not very practical?
Transphobic horses, I suppose. There's actually
Definitely, we need to put them down.
Yeah, well, someone got done for a hate crime, I think, because they took off at a traffic light near one of those and left a tyre mark in it, and they said they were intentionally vandalising.
Oh, that's just paranoia, isn't it?
So I wonder if any of the horses have defecated while riding down the street, and they're going to be hauled up in front of a Section 127 tribunal anytime soon.
You never know in this day and age. Bonkers Britain. Another thing, though, I don't know. Do we have
Go
time?
for it, yeah, of course we
do.
do.
Another thing is a lot of the sort of radical leftists like to say, the problem isn't trans people. The problem is it's violent men. It's men that are the problem. It's not these trans people. It's men. Look, of course, men commit more crimes against women because there's simply more men than people that identify as trans. But there's a real issue here, is that if you've already got one problem that exists, why would you willingly want to create more of that problem? And when you look at the offending patterns of transgender women, they're almost identical of biological men. Why? Because you can put on a skirt, you can put on a wig, but it doesn't change who you are fundamentally, and that is a man. And I don't know what these people think when they think of what a woman is, but it's certainly not putting on a bit of lipstick and a skirt.
No,
it's far more than that.
You're creating a Trojan horse for sexual crimes, and the actual horses don't like it very much. So
No.
I would suggest we ask ourselves the Jurassic Park question when it comes to artificial wombs.
Jurassic Park question.
And that is that they spent so long thinking, what can we do? They didn't consider, what should we do? I don't think making ourselves reproductive Ozymandians is a particularly bright idea. Listen to nature.
Yep. Nature knows best.
There we
Mother
go.
Earth knows best.
Oh.
I don't know if you believe in that.
Get off, no. I'm a Catholic, it's blasphemous.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast,
With Clean BC rebates, you can save money when you switch your home furnace to an eligible electric heat pump. And
Alright, let's get on to the really demoralising fact that everything you love has been turned queer now. And that's not my words, by the way. That's the words of a group of TV, film and comic book executives who sat for a chat with the Writers Guild of America, West, about how they're queer-washing all of your favourite characters and about how your concerns as fans don't matter. They don't need your money, apparently, because it's profitable on its own. Even though they need your money for it to be profitable, I'm sure we'll unpack it all. If there's any doubt on my love for this material, you can go over to our website, pay a $5 a month. There's also some preview clips on our YouTube to tantalise you. You can watch a series called Comics Corner, where Harry and I go through some of the best and worst that American and eventually maybe some manga has to offer. This one was on the history of the comics industry in the 1990s, where they had really outlandish and extreme comics, and they overprinted variant comics and caused their own market crash. And it's looked back on as a time of hackery and gimmicks and being creatively bereft. And God, I wouldn't give anything to go back there now, because things are awful. As you've already seen with Pregnant Joker. Yeah, I am miserable. Now, bear in mind, the 1990s when Batman and Robin came out as well, so the movies were actually still somehow slightly better than the tripe we're getting at the moment with Wakanda Forever. So if you don't know what I'm talking about in terms of the Zoom call, it's up on YouTube, and it hasn't been taken too kindly, as we can see with the dislike bar. 12 likes, 379 dislikes. The comments are a little
Oh, it must be
hostile.
popular. They must be popular. People seem to want them.
Yeah, but they're right. They certainly are a minority. People have basically said this is a seminar on how to lose your job. And unfortunately, that's not true, because they're going to stay there no matter what. Mainly because of ESG scores, but because of the ideological insistence on perverting everything you enjoyed in your childhood and in your adulthood. Bear in mind, folks like me, I paid throughout my life to buy back issues of the comics. I didn't buy these clowns, so that the company could make enough money so that they could come in and inherit the characters that me and other fans have made successful and other creators have made really good, and then pervert it and get paid doing so and call us racist for not liking it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to subject you to a struggle session of a few clips. Now this panel involves a few people. I'll just run down. So it's Magdalene Visaggio, who's a trans Democratic Socialist of America and GLAAD member who writes for Marvel, DC and Boom Studios. The head of TV at DC Entertainment, Kim Roberto, who says some very revelatory things during the course of this, James Tynion IV, who is the recent writer of Batman Eternal, Detective Comics, Batman and Robin Eternal, and the mainline Batman title until he went off to do his own thing. So he's no small creator, right? Thomas Page Maccabee, the showrunner on Umbrella Academy, which I don't know if you've seen it by any chance. They had Ellen Page, formerly a lesbian woman, become Elliot Page in their personal life, a trans man, and they were playing Vanya, who was a lesbian character in season 1 and 2, and then 12 days before the script hit the tables and they had to start filming, they had to change the character to make sure they showcased his trans journey to Victor.
It doesn't seem like the kind of thing that I would enjoy watching.
You would think that, but then you're a transphobe. So it's not made for you, Stelios. It's made for them to represent themselves. It's made for normal people. How dare you? How could you? Roberto Aguirre Sacasa is the chief creative officer at Archie Comics and the showrunner on Riverdale. And then David Seguari, executive vice president, film and television at Aftershock Media, formerly of the Trevor Project, who have done all sorts of sordid research. By the way, Sacasa, he spent his pre-comics career writing plays about Satanism, and he revised The Tempest to make Caliban the hero. So typical subversive stuff. So we're going to watch a few clips, and the first one I want to focus on is really, what is the teleology of art and representation? Because we hear representation a lot. What are you actually representing about a character? Especially if a character passes hands, like a Shakespeare play, or like American comic books, which is the secular monomyth of America. It survived the Second World War, the Cold War, and it reflects how Americans think of themselves. What actually is the essence of artistic representation? So I think we'll listen to Kim articulate this, and we'll see if we agree with her, shall we?
Who wants to answer? If you are reimagining a straight cis comic book character into a queer trans character, how do you navigate the balance of being true to the IP while also making the LGBTQ identity a genuine aspect of the character?
We always look at core immutables. I don't know if that's one of your favorite phrases, David, working in comics, but for us over at DC, core immutables mean like what makes the character tick, what makes them who they are, and we've never felt that it had to do with what they necessarily look like. It has to do with their emotions and what they're going through, their journey, their struggle.
So it's nothing to do with their physical form. It's nothing necessarily to do with their name. It's all to do with how they feel inside.
Which is supposed to be a core immutable.
Yeah. So their emotions are the only thing authentic to them. It's nothing to do with their externalities. It's nothing to do with how they represent in the world, which seems to undermine the representation argument, because if something physical matters, you need to see it to be it, then that would be a core immutable of the character. But it's only for identity that they like, of course. But then you come back to the sort of Gnostic mystic argument the trans activists had of, I have the soul of a woman imprisoned in a man's body, and therefore it is actually a good and noble thing to upend the culture, like comics, or upend material reality and biological reality itself as a revolutionary enemy in order to liberate my authentic soul. So it sounds very much like, when we spoke about this on there, not the Aristotelian conception of art, with physical realities abstracted one thing away from reality, so you can recognize it, but it's a testing ground for ideas. They die so we don't have to, right? And you get the catharsis of tragedy, the levity and replicability of comedy, and the factualness of historical epics. Nothing to do with that. It's the world of forms. It's, you were a woman in the world of forms. That's your lived reality. That's your soul. You've been imprisoned in this material form, and then art has abstracted a form away from the form, so it's an extra imposition on you. It's unjust. So if we liberate you in art, you can understand how to liberate yourself in the real world and achieve the form of woman, even though you were born as a man.
I think this is completely messed up.
Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't see. I don't know if we're over analyzing it.
I think it's worthwhile to unpack the actual ideas behind what they're saying, because when you take it to its logical conclusion, it doesn't make sense, and so the contradictions exposed. This is just a naked power grab, which they do admit later on.
Yeah. So if that is what they're trying to do, they're completely misguided, because, for instance, for Plato, the soul is genderless, so it doesn't help them if they're going to appeal to the gender of the soul. So, but yes, I think the idea is what you said about the authentic self. They think that there is a distinction between the authentic self and the perceived self. And the worst thing is that they are trying to present themselves as moral authorities over what is the authentic self supposed to be about. So what they are trying to do, I think they're trying to do it when it comes to schooling, and tell me if you think that this is a wild guess that is inapplicable here. They're trying to pose, to say that I know what you really are, your parents don't know, you may not know, and I'm going to create the whole system of education and possibly art, of artistic representation, as being a kind of message that I'm giving to you about who you are.
That makes perfect sense as well, because lots of these people started out in young adult fiction, like Beast Boy Loves Raven, or I Am Not Starfire, or Gotham Academy, or what's the other one? I can't remember. It's one about Aqualad being gay, and that is how they get into comics, and they take over the lead titles and subvert them with an effort called 5G, where suddenly there's non-binary Flash, bisexual Brazilian Wonder Woman, eventually bisexual Superman, non-binary, female Aquagirl, and it's just Black Batman. Nobody's buying this stuff, but it is reinforcing the narrative. Yeah. And a lot of the time they're subsidized by scholastic book fairs. That's something that Marvel did. They had this thing called Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl, and nobody bought it, but they did sell it to the libraries that go around to the schools and give out books and make sure they're sold in there. So they are pushing in educational institutions.
Exactly. It is a top-down, a forced top-down message. And it's not coincidental that they are using comic characters like the Joker, or Batman and Superman. I think last time I checked, Helen Page wants to star as Superman.
Elliot Page, we have to say, we can't dead name. They may be starring as John Kent, who is a young bisexual Superman who takes over from his father, who is being turned into a fascist slowly, which is really miserable, and they may not confirm or deny that this is actually happening in this Zoom call. Oh dear. Right, so we've exposed it as a naked power grab because of its contradictions, and then they just come out and say that. So we've got a couple of clips here. So let's go through first how the cycle of media indoctrination works from the mouths of the creatives. Let's play.
On the Outfest side, as the largest LGBTQIA film festival, one of the programmers the other day was talking to us about the cycle of trans and queer narratives and how first they need to be tragic. So again, we can have empathy with the larger public, and we have our HIV stories and all these things that have already happened. And then they turn into comedy and sort of that best friend character, what have you, and their supporting character, the main character. And then we go into the normalization that Mags was talking about. And I think what we need to see is in that period, we get so many coming out stories. I think every coming out story, right, has probably been told, or we've seen different angles on it. What we need is actually fully realized, lived in trans and queer characters, that their sexuality, that their gender identity is not their only character trait, but that they have a dimensional realized life, and they live in a life in which they have family members and friends and lovers, and they're messy and they're tragic and they're weird. And I think we need to see that in space. We need to see that in the Wild West. We need to see that in our time. Like, I think we just need more of celebrating queerness and transness in a way that has not been done, because we've been relegated to like needing to speak on the parts that make it relatable to other people. And at this point, we don't need to be relatable anymore. We can just exist.
So there's a few things about that. So first of all, we get the genealogy of how, let's say in the 90s, for example, loads of sitcoms like Friends and Will and Grace had lots of gay characters, and they were the likable ones, they were the funny ones, they had some tragic dimensions, so you could really sympathize, because they were just like you, right? The crux of Ellen DeGeneres' coming out piece in Time to make her seem really relatable. Then we see it move into, we need to capture existing properties, and then retroactively insert throughout history all of our characters to make it seem normal. This is why Marie Antoinette now is having this new series on BBC where she's a lesbian, and same with that The Favourite about the Queens in the Georgian period, about them getting it on, and all this painful nonsense where the root of it is just their sexuality. It's not a compelling story necessarily. So that achieves total capture and dominance. And it's openly manipulative because they want to confect sympathy on the part of an aggrieved group. That's the starting point. And it's sad because it like retroactively colors stories like Life is Strange, which I really like. They try and co-opt that, even though it's a really good story, into their project of making you feel bad for this group. But then when it becomes normalized, then when they say, oh, what everyone actually would say if it was a gay character, for example, if you created a new gay character, let's just have them have a family and a central conflict and be a complete human, right? What they're saying is, not just have them in the story and be a complete character where it's not just about their sexuality. Have the majority of characters, as James Tinian says later in here, he says, I want there to be not just a trans villain, but a trans hero also battling the trans villain. So it becomes ubiquitous and completely captured, and it becomes the norm. And so, by doing that, rather than supplanting sympathy for their condition, you've now turned it into, we're going to start from the premise they have to be queer, trans, gay, etc. So that is actually the heroic virtue, rather than their actions that undergird their heroism, but definitely not their villainy, because the villains we have to sympathise with, right? Joker was just cursed to be pregnant. Oh, what a sad fate befalling him. I identify more with the villains, which is actually something that the women of Marvel said in a podcast, which is explaining a lot, really. So, if we move on to the next clip...
can I have a comment about representation that you said?
Yeah, go for it, please.
It's interesting that they're trying to overpopulate characters, overpopulate the characters of a comic with, LGBTQ plus characters. But and they phrase it in terms of representation. But they're not but members of this community are not the majority of the members of the population.
Yeah, it's not proportionate, yes.
It's not proportionate. So how are they going to... They're not representing, they are over-representing.
They're manufacturing, which is the creation of...
Yeah,
it's the creation of the perception of consent on behalf of an aggrieved group, which means that if they can affect this, they can push for more political power and the eternal provision of jobs in these captured institutions so they can keep confecting propaganda endlessly.
And I have another question.
Yep.
Why don't they make a new comic with new characters that are whatever they want them to be?
Because they don't sell. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And actually what happened was as well, once there was a Batgirl of Burnside comic and they made an allusion to it being a trans villain, and in the comic Batgirl tries to say, no, but you can't sign up to the women's talent show because you're not, and the sound cuts are off, implying that it's a man. And because of transphobia, they had to rescind and reprint the comic and imply that, oh, you can't enter the talent show, you're just a bad singer. And then it turns out that there were some sexual assault allegations against the writer.
But do you think that this will sell comparatively to other Batman novels?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's
so there's a really big question here, and everyone in the economy should ask this. If businesses are run this way by people who are completely uncaring about what the majority of the people want and think, and they are just trying to push an agenda, they will go broke. Maybe, Marvel and DC are, too big to fail.
No, they're tanking entirely at the moment. DC is basically borderline cutting their publishing line. They've been bought a bunch of times. But they're already ESGs, so they are going to get the subsidies to keep pushing these narratives because your corporate credit score will go up if you keep putting the trans superheroes in, comrade. So the next clip is Thomas Page McBee on how to sustain this long march for the institutions. How can you keep the pressure up? Let's play.
As a staff writer, you have very little power, right? So pick your battles. And be really strategic and thoughtful about how you want to deal with that, but just really try to pick your battles, because what you really need is mental health and the capacity to have a longevity in this industry and to kind of keep a sustained interest in what it sounds like you have, which is like a genuine desire to disrupt this model that is systemically broken, where the staff writer who represents the marginalized group is the person with least amount of power, and then you're trying to convince people who are telling your stories or stories that relate to you that how to do that, and they're not listening. That is a problem in so many different ways right now in rooms, and I think it's the way that you can really, or the way we can all kind of get screwed by that, is if we exhaust all our emotional energy trying to save someone else's story from their own, from their own failure of understanding and empathy. And so I think letting people fail is okay. I think saying your piece and having your own integrity and picking your battles, but really just trying to think about, how do I sustain my own career, and how do I make sure that I resolve this issue going forward as I get higher and higher up. And as you get higher and higher up, you will have more and more of a say. So there is like a light at the end of the tunnel. But I know that's not like the sexiest advice, but it's really, for me, that's been my experience. Like you pick your battles and just don't exhaust yourself over other people's inability to listen to you.
So he is openly admitting there that he will allow institutions and stories to fail as long as it advances his personal career, which is ideologically founded. in, and as he said, emotions is his resource, expressing the authentic emotions of the character, which is their internal soul. So you are engaging in queer liberation theology in using the culture to strip people of their prejudices, I suppose they would say, that prevent them from being queer or trans or well, I suppose you meant to be
From
born
being
this
their
way,
true
but there
self.
you go. Exactly, yeah. And you don't want to exhaust your emotions. And so, like a group of ideological locusts, you will move from one cultural crop field to the next, deserting it of its money and seeing if it can just benefit you and your project. Why would you want to hire these people?
And as they said in the previous video,
New Cracker Barrel cheese sauce kits. Now this is sauce. Now this is cheese. It's not how Canadian you are, it's who you are in Canada. CBC, it's a Canada thing.
So the TERFs have basically won. I think that's about time to just say it. And I say this because their argument not only was obviously factually true. You're not a real woman, you have no eggs, you have no... No, can't do the whole copy pasta. But the argument was always going to...
should have got the Joe Biden AI take of it.
It's always going to be lost, but they, I don't think, have any ability to lose even in the political sphere. At least in the UK, and in which case if we win this here, well not us, but the TERFs win it, the argument, well then I don't see why it won't spread to the Anglosphere. So good news, folks, I suppose.
I mean, the thing is, it's hardly like it doesn't feel like a very significant victory. Well, what was the argument? Well, the definition of woman, not human female. It's like the dictionary definition since the dictionary was written.
Yeah, but at least the fad will be over in 5 years.
Yeah,
and what everyone predicted, which is we'll look back at it with horror. I mean, there will be true.
Actually, I think it'll be comical. I don't know,
man.
The definition, the arguments about the definition will be comical. Of course, the things that happened after it will be horrific.
Yeah. So just to mention something, of course, I'll mention the Intersectionality Origins podcast, just to get into the nub about why we ended up here.
Yeah.
Yes, every minority group is oppressed and must join together to overthrow the majority group who are the oppressors, which includes literally anyone, which also pedophiles, which will come back around at the end of this in a weird way. I wasn't expecting. But if we go to Posey, she, we spoke about this previously. It was just like Posey Parker shows why TERFs will win, and it was demonstrable, even in the, I don't want to call it polite society, the sanitized society of
the progressive society.
Yeah, the in-power political parties and the arms of the state in terms of the media there were not able to make the argument convincingly, even amongst themselves in question time.
Look how
the example here.
Was there?
It's a nice young boy.
Respectable.
Not anymore. Anyway, but it's a valid issue, of course, because if we go forward, we can just see the most recent scandal, because there's always one every day.
Yeah.
Female prison guards ordered to strip search dangerous trans Scot convict. So female prison guards were made to
strip search a man.
Cup and balls.
Yeah.
Even though he's got balls and a cock. Anyway, they were asked if they didn't want to do it, they must submit their reasons as to why in writing.
But I don't want to lose my job.
You must put in writing why you don't want to fondle cock and balls in your job. So,
as a women's prison guard.
It's not really my job. Wasn't in the description anyway. But
so is that the person?
Yes, this is the convict.
He looks like an 80s action hero.
Oh yeah, he's done nothing, literally zero, to change his appearance at all. He literally just hung up and said, I am a woman. I require females to strip search me. And the prison system complied.
And we joked about this years ago. Oh,
yeah.
What did you say then? If you just say it, here we are.
Well, I love how you have like the occasional TikTok from some 17-year-old who's taking the piss.
Yeah.
He's like pissing in the girl's bathroom. And he's like, I'm a woman, how can you not prove it?
Yeah.
But no, it works as well, with the halls of power. If we go to Glasgow, there was a rally there from Posey Parker and all the TERFs just being like, Sturgeon is retarded, don't want her. And one of the trans rights activists attempts to infiltrate the crowd. Spot the trans rights activist.
Yeah, I wonder.
The really tall one, perhaps, compared to all these tiny middle-aged women, which suddenly, yeah, kind of a standout.
I can't help but notice a generational gap as well.
There is definitely a generational gap. One of the, for people who don't know, the reason why it was in Glasgow is because the Scottish government decided that they would introduce a bill putting all, well, male rapists who say they're women in women's prisons.
Yes.
And then Westminster, the British government went, we're vetoing that. You don't have any power anymore over this because you're retarded. We can't trust you. And they screeched for about a day about how this was an English oppression.
Yes.
Until the very next day.
No, it is. It's English oppression. Deal with it.
Until the very next day when a man who was a rapist was moved from a women's prison. And
this is why we're oppressing you. Okay? This is why.
The entire
protect your women.
The entire Scottish nationalist movement very quickly shut up. There's actually, I probably should have included, there's a wonderful clip of immediately after that story. Someone goes up to Nicola Sturgeon, the leader of Scottish nationalists, and is like, so what is a woman? And she's like, well, anyone who says they are, what about in the prison system? Well, I mean, there's conditions in which...
I thought you would have included that. Was an amazing clip.
Completely forgot about that. But
anyway, yeah.
And John, if you can find it, actually.
Basically, Sturgeon was forced to admit that actually trans women are only women under certain circumstances. There are circumstances in which they're not women, such as being put into women's prisons.
That's not acceptable. But we go to the next one here, because turns out that there's some more things.
Oh, hang on, John's got it. Okay. That was quick, John. Oh, it was on your own Twitter feed. Go on then.
Let's play it.
Trans women.
This
You haven't
is-
answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
That's
here.
the question I'm
Like,
asking.
trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans
So
woman.
there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is circumstances in which a trans woman will be housed in the male prison estate.
Is there
because
any
of the
context
nature
in
of
which
the
a
crime.
woman born as a woman will be housed in the male estate?
Look, we're talking here about trans
And
women.
I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there, but
So it's different for trans women.
well, yes, and I'm not.
So they're not equal.
That is not that there is a risk assessment process done for trans women that takes account of the nature of the crime. Clearly, significant concern arises out of sexual crime and whether it's appropriate for them to be in a female prison or a male.
My question is,
Destroyed.
Just absolutely
Destroyed in 4 questions.
But destroyed by herself as well, in which she's literally laying out, like, of course they're separate, but equal. Anyway, we have the next link here, because here's the turnout there of just all the people who turned up in Glasgow to be like, yeah, women exist. That's
shocking.
Yeah, the mass movement in the UK is that. Cool. We'll move to the next one. There was a speech given that I found of note, which was literally just someone shouting, stop lying to my children, essentially.
Fair.
So that she reads about her kid went to school and they started telling the kid that you can change your sex, and she's just like, that's not true, stop lying.
Well, yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And then if you go to the next one, there's also quite the reason as to why they are miffed locally, because you may remember, the day after we took away their power, because they were retarded, the members of the Scottish Parliament, the SNP members, went down to this thing, and you can see the lady there who's the politician, who's like, I stand with the SNP against our vile oppression to not be able to put rapists in female prisons.
Yeah.
And behind her is a chap with decapitate turfs written on it as well. Moral high ground. Very moral high ground.
Very progressive.
Yeah. And then if we go to the next one, we can see the kind of opposition that did turn up to the event, which was trans anti-far furries.
Hello, fellow allies.
Do you think my point I think the turfs have won?
Yeah.
This is my argument, because
I think the BBC spin this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the opposition are comical at the best of times.
Oh yeah, because we're discussing fascism here.
Murderous in their optics. Decapitate the turfs. Yeah, I don't.
And absolutely cringe in every other way.
Yeah, and also your argument's nonsense to begin with. But okay. These guys turned up. You can see the cat uniform. If you go to the next one, I think we can see Graham Linton made a response to this, which is anyone dressed like this who doesn't work at Disneyland is a nonce.
I mean, I have severe suspicions.
I don't know why you felt the need to do this with your day. You know what I keep my furry costume for?
I don't know what.
Says this person.
Oh, right.
Just getting clipped.
Yeah.
To go down and protest and insist that we can cut off genitals of children and put them in female prisons and blah blah blah. Jeez, okay, whatever, man.
I'm just getting to the point where I'm just kind of anti-freedom, I think. You know, if this is where we end up, it's like this trans furry nonsense. So, right. Maybe there's something else we need rather than just freedom.
I don't know why you're anti-freedom. Like, this is brilliant. This is a fantastic use of freedom. Your opposition have dressed up as a cat, turned up with the trans flag, like a moron.
I just want to present this to John Stuart Mill.
Yeah, but
I really just want to, John. Look, this is what you're arguing for. You know that, right?
Look, if we insist that these people can't dress like this, Kai, your opposition might look respectable.
Exactly.
Why would you want that?
There's no way that Edmund Burke would have been signing up on this.
Here's my point. Let's go to the next one, because there's a speaker from the side of, well, women exist. And this person had detransitioned, so they transitioned from 12 to 19.
What? I misheard that. Say that again.
They transitioned from the ages of 12 to 19.
Right.
They were groomed. Come on.
Yes.
And this individual has now realised I was groomed, and has come out and they gave a speech here in which they just mentioned that everyone I thought loved me left me immediately. As soon as they were no longer the special little trans snowflake who's part of the proletariat of the world standing up against the evil turfs.
Yeah.
Dumped like a hot potato. Not interesting. Done playing with that toy. Gonna go play with a different toy. And they are left with the scars, literally.
That's awful.
We'll go to the signs of the movement, because I just think they're funny. So if we click on the left one there, you can just go through it. Start with the first one. Men are not women.
Brilliant statement, yeah.
Starting a brave.
Totally agree. I mean...
Children are not lab rats, with dollar signs. Stop the madness of transmutilation, sterilization.
Yeah.
Next one here, we have, it's hard to read that one there, but it's basically how many more do we have to go through, and they've got pictures of, I think it's either sex offenders or pedos, who have been sent to female prisons who are clearly men in a wig, and with the hashtag keep prison single sex. I kind of love that, because I love how you always get just, oh, it's not real, it's a far-right conspiracy. We've got the faces and the names.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want exactly? How many more? It's a good point. In the last image here, a man can't become a woman. Simple. Simple as.
I mean,
Big Baz's wife out there. Meet the wife, Susan. She's a turf now. Loves her Posey Parker, she does. Anyway, go to the next one. Because, we can see the opposition side.
I don't disagree though, but it's just like such low standards.
That's great though.
Okay.
You can see the...
oh, this is a good sign.
The opposition though, they were there with the transphobia equals fascism, except they've then drawn the 3 hours of the trans colours as well. You're embarrassing. I mean, the tolerant swastika, which is what that is, is retarded anyway.
But nobody in their right mind thinks that what the TERFs are saying, as in men can't become women, is a variant of fascism. Just no one thinks that. This is deranged.
We're gonna become a union of TERFs, and then we're gonna overthrow the state, and everyone's gonna have to join our union by force.
Also, doesn't this make like the Iranian regime anti-fascist?
Yeah, that's actually a thing. Wait, that's actually an argument in the anti-far world.
Oh, right.
Have you ever seen that?
Oh, we support the mullahs because they're anti-fascist.
It's
because they transition gay.
It's because they're anti-American, basically anyone anti-American becomes part of the left-wing angels.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. For people wondering, that's why you occasionally see an account that's got like Iranian flag, Russian flag, Syrian flag, North Korean flag, and you're just like, what?
This is a person who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, lives in the West, is 19. Okay.
Yeah.
Moving forward, because we'll go to the next one here, in which a clearly sane person assaults a man because he has a sign that they don't like, and then after that there's some screeching and it's not very interesting.
Probably shouldn't actually show this video.
Yeah, if you could pause it there, please, John, because that individual there then pulls up their top to show off massive scars across their chest and screams, "I am a man."
Yes, that's what makes you a man. Having your breasts removed.
Every man has huge scars.
Yeah, we've all had our breasts removed.
Yeah, it's what happens. The ladies who don't know, penis inspection day is just a cover for breast removal day, which we don't want you to know about.
Yeah.
It's a deeply embarrassing thing for 13-year-old boys.
Coming back to the generational difference, I mean, how old do you think the person is?
The child?
Allison, she's alive. Is more going on than anything that's up.
I mean, how old do you think the person is?
The child?
Well, I don't think they're a child. I think they're like 20s.
Yeah, something like that.
And so maybe 17, 18 when they have the breast removed. It's like, I've said this so many times. I made stupid decisions when I was 18 years old. I make stupid decisions now. You know, this is such an important thing that it's just going to
cutting off your genitals.
Have such a life-changing consequences for so many decades afterwards. And it's...
Cut off your thumbs, you don't need them.
Oh yeah, I'm glad I did that when I was 18. You know?
No, that's my way. It's just like,
yeah.
What other thing on earth do you think you can cut off from your body?
Yeah.
That won't regrow? Do you think is not necessary? There's no movement of people cutting off their ears or something. I'm thinking, yeah, that's a good idea.
I know, it's just mental. Honestly, I'm sad. I genuinely feel sad for that person.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of people, as mentioned, the detransitioners, who are literally just, that's where that person may be in 2 years.
The thing is, that person is so committed to their position that they have to literally be like, look, my lack of breasts means I'm a man. That's so right. That's really terrible. You know, it's actually terrible. Like and I actually feel kind of bad for trying to push them off that perspective, being like, well, maybe, because that's going to really harm their mental like security.
You brought into something, haven't you, when you got to that point?
Yeah.
We'll get to the next one here, because there's a local cyclist, Jeremy Vine over here, who noticed that in his area there's a new trans rights crosswalk.
You know, just a quick aside on Jeremy Vine, right? I don't know anything about Jeremy Vine, except his tweets keep popping up on my timeline since Elon changed the algorithm. And I think I support the exact opposite of everything Jeremy Vine says.
Do you interact with him?
No.
Oh, that's weird then. Usually
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, it must be other people like talking about it.
It's kind of he kind of bait posts, and this is one of them. In the sense of it's not bait; he's just that retarded, but it comes off as bait.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
There's a bunch of things that have come up, and I'm just like, no, the opposite. If that's true, Jeremy.
Yeah, I saw Glinner is getting more and more radical.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Rightfully so, because he responded to this.
That's probably how I saw it.
Not even going to get into the debates about the fact that this is bad for a whole number of disability reasons, for horses, for guide dogs, for the fact that it actually costs more than usual, paint as well. I've actually written to the council about that after he lied to me. You ready? But here he mentions, Jeremy, are you aware of the faded pink, blue, and colours our so-called map flag? The creator of the trans flag said the colours represented young boys and young girls. Why have these colours been added to the rainbow?
Great question by Glenn.
I didn't know about this. We'll go to the Redux, of course, because they have the story.
Ah, yes. My favourite news outlet.
I love Redux. I don't have bad words said about them. I did not know the story, because they think... I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the female mind, but the digging into the humans is always what's most revealing. So Monica Helms, born Robert Hodge, designed the first trans pride flag in 1999. In his memoir, More Than Just a Flag, Helms, who named himself after a fictional battle in The Lord of the Rings, described...
Helms Deep!
That's actually the reason. Yeah.
Oh, that's... Okay, fine.
Describes himself as an enlightened being who has been able to float between multiple worlds. Yeah, okay. Clearly saying, quote, I identify as female, but I'm more of a bi-gender person, Helms Deep says. This allows my brain to float between multiple worlds, or solidly take on one role or another. Sometimes I am a man and a woman at the same time, or I can take on a change in a nanosecond.
Sometimes you need a hobby. That's what that is. You just need to get out and do something.
I can change in a nanosecond between a man and a woman, or I can be both of them at the same time. You're a TikToker. That's what you are. When narrating his childhood in the memoir, Helms details how at the age of 12 he would steal his mother's undergarments. Quote, I went into my parents' bedroom and looked through my mother's dresser drawers. I found several of my mother's cotton panties and bras, neatly stacked them in piles. And the girls in the shadows wanted to try them on. I wanted to try them on. When I did, I felt exciting to wear them. It goes on.
So it's a fetish.
Yeah, it goes on very fetishistically. He joins the Navy. Pure coincidence. It goes on doing more and more weird things. And then there's one short story he writes about how there's a 16-year-old he falls in love with who never ages and is perfectly 16 for the rest. Yeah, whatever, I'm leaving that there. And then the article mentions there's actually a bunch of old pedo designs. You know the symbols of pedos, they like keep it themselves.
Like the FBI ones.
Yeah, like those things are called. Anyway, there's some old designs back before the flag was made, which are all about light blue and pinks, and that's the symbols for...
As in childlike pastel colours.
Because they like to abuse children.
Like
And, yeah, there you are. Yeah. That's the symbols that we use. Apparently before this person declared it the trans flag, quote, it's unclear whether Helms was aware of the coloration? I can't speak. I can't say it now. Anyway, there's similarities at the time, but when discussing the symbolism behind the trans flag in an interview in 2017, Helms stated that the blue represented young boys and the pink represented young girls.
Oh, right. That seems innocent.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about there.
Pure coincidence, I'm sure. I didn't know this. This is the thing.
Hope you're paying attention, Jeremy Vines. This is what you're signing off.
When they list what it's used for these days, you figure out just how bad this all is. The pink, blue, and white stripes have been displayed by MI6, the intelligence service of the United Kingdom, as well as the UK's embassy in Washington. The US Smithsonian Institute of American History acquired the original flag to put in their collection in 2014.
Oh, this is historic.
And in 2021, Helms formally requested President Joe Biden fly the trans flag over US embassies, which you may remember he did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, of course he did.
And now you think of it as a pedo flag. You know the whole meme of the international American pedo cult that runs the world? I mean, it's getting worse. Because
Jeffrey Epstein flying the flag.
Yeah, because we get the next one here. Like, you see, it brings a whole new meaning to these, like, you know, trains. I've seen these trains in the UK, for people who haven't. Progress. Oh, no. Anyway, whole side note here, because a whole other thing happened with Posey Margaret, which I found funny. Matt Walsh made everyone upset.
Yeah, Matt obviously doesn't know who Posey is.
Well, no, he's met her. Pretty sure they've met, so it's not new. Okay. But Matt Walsh decided to tweet out, all a man wants is to come home from a long day at work to a grateful wife and children who are glad to see him, and a dinner cooking on the stove.
It's literally it. He is right. That is literally all it takes for men to be happy.
But this is literally all it takes for men to be happy. We are simple. Give us this and you'll have given us nearly everything we need. If I don't get it again, I'm going to beat her again. It's what my mind did, but I know that's not what he means. That's not what he means. I know. It's just like, all I want to do is come home to a cooked dinner. You goddamn. It's not what he means. I know, but...
Totally indoctrinated by feminist propaganda.
It's just a meme. Anyway, but Posey responded to that, saying, all a woman wants is to come home after an amazing women's rights rally to a devoted husband and wonderful kids. We're grateful to see her with dinner cooking on the stove. This is literally all it takes for her to keep them happy. Give us that, and that's all we need. Taking the beat. But if you get the next one, we got Matt Walsh, who's like, I would suggest the number of women in the world who want to attend women's rights rallies and then come home to their stay-at-home husbands is somewhere between the realm of 0.0001%, which is a gross overestimate. What I love is Posey responded with, he said it was a stay-at-home husband. That's kind of funny to me.
She's obviously joking.
Yeah, but I just love the aspect of Matt Walsh being like, yeah, well, no one's a stay-at-home husband. And Posey's like, yeah, of course. what are you, idiot? You said it was a stay-at-home husband, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And then she goes on to explain her life. It's kind of funny. But we'll go to an end here, which, if we go to the BBC, they've had to now apologise for their discussion of Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, really? Why? What did they do?
So we're getting it in here. Hogwarts Legacy never dies. We've seen the reviews that come out, actually.
I have not seen the reviews.
All the, official reviewers are all giving it, 80s, 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Nazis.
A lot of people upset. Anyway, the BBC have had to issue an apology after they had totally a woman on from some website called The Gamer, a website for video game fans, I'm sure. Well, game fans. Anyway, saying that it's all transphobic, and the BBC were like, please tell us more, and I've had to apologise for the fact that obviously,
I don't know, it's a great advertising campaign for J.K. Rowling, to be honest.
Yeah, eventually
she's transphobic, but her game's selling like hotcakes.
Some individual.
All they can say is, well, it's a transphobic game.
But you're driving in the car on the way home and you hear it, you're like, I don't know what I'm buying.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to sell it to me.
I'm not buying it either, I think it's funny. We'll end that there for now. And, I don't know, I just think the Tusk will win. It's undeniable.
How are the crazy people just come back?
If you're
That review from Chef Lover 27 was so right. You're buying a knife.
So there is no point debating race because the game is rigged. You cannot win because they have defined the terms of the debate so that you are definitionally wrong and they are definitionally right. And to use an example of this in action, we are going to use a video that Peter Whittle put up on the New Culture Forum, debating some race activist, some grifter.
So racist.
Yeah, explicitly, actually, but we'll get to that. Because she knows, and you can tell by the attitude, right? A lot of a debate, right? You don't even need to listen to it to see who's winning a debate. You just look at the expressions on the faces of the people. Look at the body language, look at the mannerisms. Look at who's smiling during the debate, who has the person on the hook, and who's being reeled in. And that's exactly why you don't need to do this. But before we begin, go and check out the symposium I did with Stelios on John Rawls' view on justice. I think John Rawls was absolutely atrocious, and everything he said was nonsense, frankly. But then that's because I'm a cynical post-liberal. And I've realised that actually his original position is BS. The veil of ignorance is BS. And I could go on and on, but go and watch that. But the reason this matters is because essentially all of this comes down to Rawls' original position. Well, in an ideal, perfect world, and you could choose the kind of society you'd be born into, would you choose this one where there may be injustices? It's like, when has that ever happened, John? When have I got to do that? No.